introduce Priest Dougie. Yeah.
Ready. Blessed love, welcome to the African Rastafari New Faculty of Overstanding second webinar of the series. This one is entitled The Rastafari Woman, Restoration, Recognition, and Inclusion. I am the host, Ja Daniel, and on behalf of the new faculty committee, I welcome you and I give thanks that you are here with us to discuss these most pressing issues. We ask that everyone would please keep their microphones muted while the program is going on. Toward the end of the show, after all the panelists have presented, there will be an opportunity for ones to ask questions. And at that point, we will open up your mic when it's your turn. We ask that you keep the questions relatively short and to the point for the sake of time so that all people's questions can be answered and heard. And at this time, I will turn the floor over to Honorable Priest Dougie to open up the program with a prayer. My Lord.
Greetings and welcome everyone. Glory to word, glory to sound, glory to power. Glory to our divine majesty, Emperor Haile Selassie I and Empress Menen Asfa. And I entreat our ancestors this day to shine their light upon I and I, to give I and I wise mind as we counsel together, to chart through these waters of precarious times to that greater light, of overstanding. Most High, Jah Rastafari. Over to you, Ja Daniel.
Yes, my Lord, give thanks. So at this time, we would like to welcome Honorable Ras Sekou of Front Publishing Company to the floor to give the opening remarks. Ras Sekou.
Honorable Ras Sekou, can you unmute him?
I'm on mute.
Yes, I. Blessed, we can see you.
Okay, give thanks. Yes, I. You hear me now?
Yes, sir. Yes, Ras Sekou.
Yes, I. Give thanks.
All right.
Yes. Eli, Haile Selassie the first and Empress Menen Asfa, our perfect balance. Eli, Haile Selassie the first and Empress Menen Asfa, our perfect balance. Eli, Haile Selassie the first and Empress Menen Asfa, our perfect balance. Yes, we give thanks. This is an honorable time. We give thanks for the Rastafari, African Rastafari organization. We're now building on the whole question of the new faculty of interpretation and understanding. So we give thanks for this new faculty and to be here today to have this serious conversation, a conversation that we should have already have, but it's never too late for us to deal with our realities and situations that is facing us today in this crucial time, at this crucial moment, in this crucial period in space and time. So we give thanks, and we give thanks to respect our mothers, our grandmothers, our great-grandmothers, our aunts, our sisters, our queens, our empresses, our wives, our daughters, our nieces, and our Mother Earth, the great Mother Earth, from where everything comes from. We give thanks for this day. So without further ado, we want to take time to talk about the Rastafari, Nubian, African woman. She is equal but yet different. And to start the conversation, we want to deal with the dynamics of our woman, the Black woman, the Rastafari woman, who has been here from time immemorial, but who has been put at the bottom of the ladder in all aspects of the world. And we need to change that in this conversation. In this conversation, we need to change the dynamics of how our women have been treated over the last 70 plus years, even within Rastafari movement. Out of all the movements, all the religious, spiritual movements of the world, Rastafari is the least and the last one to be making this important change in terms of how we see our woman and how we respect our woman and how we respect our sisters and our daughters and our queens and our empresses and our goddesses. And we need as African people to visit the reality of what has created the situation, why we have to deal with the question of inferiority complex within the gender at this point in time, in the year 2021. And when we look at this important issue, we go to the Bible, the book that was given to us, given to our foreparents as slaves. And though their Majesty points out that he dwells in the Bible, no matter which version it might be, whether it is the Ethiopian Orthodox version, or it is the King James version, or it is the Greek version. But we must look at this book very carefully at this point in time, because when you look at it, we look at the origin of the problem that relates to our woman. And it said, and it was said, God or they decided to make man. And God made man. They had a conversation here. It's a conversation we are hearing. Let us make man. Let us make man in our own image and likeness. So in my mind, I'm hearing two conversations taking place a conversation between two people, or two persons, or two beings. Let us make man in our own image and likeness. So then man is made, and after man is made, it is now decided that our man needs a companion because man is lonely. So the companion is made where man, Adam, which was the name of the first man according to the story or the narrative given to us by someone else. Because this narrative that I'm relating here does not relate to us as African people. It does not relate to us as Rastafari people. It does not relate to us as Nubian people. It does not relate to us as ancient people. This story is only 6,000 to 7,000 years old. So it does not relate to us as a people, but this story has been imposed on us. It is one of the greatest stories ever told, but it's a story based on lies, based on somebody else's history. And the story goes, man, God made man in his own image and likeness. And after God made man in his own image and likeness, he decided that man was lonely. And he said, let us make woman. And he put the man to sleep. And he took a rib out of that man and gave to that woman. And in giving that woman that rib, he told them, he said to them, this place here, what they call this great garden, some call it Eden, that you all should not touch of this tree. Of the fruit of this tree, you all shall not eat. That's what the story tells us. But yet, it was told that Eve influenced Adam to eat of that fruit. And I used to hear my elders, Bonagis and other elders would be saying that, oh, it was the woman who caused man to fall from grace, from Jah. So here where the problem is starting here with the question of how we look at our woman as the one who influences us. And that is where the beginning of the problem starts in Genesis. And it climaxes in Revelation. It climaxed in Revelation by a man called Saul, who then became Paul, who was an apostle of what you called Jesus the Christ. And in this formation, Saul, who then became Paul, said to his followers, man is head of the woman as Christ is head of the church. This is the beginning and the continuation of the degradation and inferiority complex that we have to face today, that our woman, our Black woman, our Rastafari woman, our Nubian woman has to experience. The question that today our woman is faced with the question of being exploited by a system, previously feudalism, previously chattel slavery, and now we encountered industrial slavery, and the woman is at the bottom of the ladder. The woman is at the bottom of the ladder because of the reality that a system of capitalism has put her in a position where she becomes bottom of the ladder based on the fact of a gender inferiority complex. So in a workplace, we have a situation taking place. We are in a workplace, we have a situation where the white man or the pale man is at the top of the ladder when it comes to being paid, then followed by the white woman or the pale woman. Then, if there's no other races, then the Black man, and then the Black woman or the Nubian woman, and then if the Rastafari woman is at the bottom of that, the Rastafari woman is at the bottom of that. So then this is our reality in this dispensation. This is our reality when we look at the question of gender and the reality that African women has been the first to walk on this planet, notwithstanding a Bible that tells us 6,000 years ago about Adam and Eve. And if you look at the story of Adam and Eve was a second thought in the story. Eve was a second thought because it was only after they created Adam that they realized Adam would need a companion. After the second thought. So Eve is a second thought, and even in their story, it shows you why the white woman has to take up the struggle for feminism. But the struggle of the Black woman, the struggle of the Rastafari woman, is not one. The struggle of the Rastafari woman is not the same as the struggle of the pale skin woman, because the struggle of the Rastafari woman is that she is struggling to fight against feudalism. She's struggling to fight against capitalism. She's struggling to fight against exploitation and sexploitation in the workplace because she's a woman. Only because she's a woman, she has to fight. And even within the household, in the Rastafari communities, in our own household, the Rastafari woman has to fight for her own space because she is still being exploited somewhat, even by us, Rastafari man. Because the woman at the end of the day, she takes a job. She takes a job that she goes to and she comes home and she still has to come back to work to take care of the children, to provide food, to clean the house, all without any wages, all without any quantum pay. These are our realities.
60 seconds.
These are our realities. They are in majesty. Attempted to show a difference with the coronation in 1930. Old traditions was brought back into existence, going with over 10,000 years into existence, going 10,000 years into the time of Nubia, and Kemet, what we now know as Egypt, and to pull out the principles of man and woman coming together in unison, being crowned at the same time, at the same place, equality between a man and a woman, which is what we as African people in our anciency practice. Because within our anciency and our practice, the strength of the matrilineal and matriarchal society, where the woman, the child will always carry the name of the mother, because it's a surety that the mother, we know who the mother of the child is. So when we look at even our in the slave process that we as African people in the Caribbean and North America have experienced, we look at that experience of the Harriet Tubmans and the Sojourner Truth and the Nanya, the Maroons, and so on. And when we look at these experiences, we see the Rasta woman emerging out of slavery, fighting for her freedom, fighting for a place, what we call emancipation. Not like the white woman, because the white woman is fighting to be equal to her man in the sense of, because her man has continuously put his foot on her neck in the same way he's putting a foot on our necks today, continuously. So the Rastafari woman, even at the foundation of the first Rastafari community. We're just not even 15 minutes yet.
I'll tell you what she said.
Right. Yes, greetings. Yes. So
Yes.
what we are saying is, in reality, we must respect the African woman, the Rastafari woman. She is needed, have a needed place. We have members of our community, our great sisters, who are there charting the course, right? We have Sister Desta, Mama Desta. We have Mama Mitzi. We have Mama Waletti. And we have a whole host, Mama, our dear sister Marina, Blake, and all these great sisters and empresses and queens and goddesses who are now charting a path whereby we as African people, as African men, have to raise our women above the sky, because our women deserve to be there. Women don't need us to give them emancipation. There is a natural path. We have sided and have taken away their path. Why it is Nyabingi, we named Nyabingi after a woman. And then in Nyabingi, the woman cannot play the Nyabingi drums at a Nyabingi ceremony. We had to ask these questions in this conversation. We have to ask the question in this conversation, why it is.
Raseku, I pray thee, my Lord. I would like to listen to you for the next 3 hours advocating for us queens, us empresses, because this is what is necessary, you know. However, I have to lay down the hammer, the time, and turn it forward.
Already, 50 minutes going, 6 years going already.
Too fast. So I'm gonna turn it forward to Jadogi that will you know, kind of sum things up, and then we'll get a quick moderator statement.
Yes,
but
yes, Mama. Yes,
thanks,
Mama. Yes,
honorable.
Yes, I.
Yes, I give thanks to Sekou, you know. Yeah, man, we share the sentiment, you know. It is time, it is past due time to return the queens, you know. But I will now greet and welcome to the esteemed panelists, Empresses of Rastafari, welcome. And also to the audience who has taken time out of their busy schedule to be here, to sharing this dialogue. Rastafari Empresses, restoration, recognition, and inclusion. The African Rastafari New Faculty of Overstanding is a collective of seasoned activists within the Rastafari movement and the Pan-African struggle. who have volunteered their services to facilitate a groundation reasoning within the African Rastafari family. I mission is to assess, analyze, and determine the changes needed, if any, that are ascertained from the dialogue, our approach and implementation of the final resolutions, and to scribe a manifesto that will help to codify our livity. At the conclusion of this discourse, I will attempt to identify the houses, groups, or companies within our community that are providing the services needed or that are best equipped to help repair the breaches. This afternoon, we want to challenge the Eurocentric stereotype propagated about the queens within the Rastafari movement. And I will explore the Empress's roles, responsibility, and their concerns. I also want to take a look at a successful model within the African cultural development that will help Rastafari queens flourish and be able to fully participate in the advancement of the Rastafari movement. African women have always played a vital role in the African society, community, and village. It was the institutionalizing of religion that subverted the role of the African woman. Before women's rights became trendy or politically correct, or the politically correct approach of the modern world, it was the Rastafari man and man that first elevated the female to the status of queens and empresses. That today all over the globe, among different ethnicities, the title of queen and even more so empress is widely used to uplift the woman. While Rastafari has endeared the sisters with such uplifting titles, giving the sisters a seat at the decision-making table has had slow progress. The Honorable King Emmanuel's sentiment was that it is overdue for the woman to be elevated to their rightful position within the African family, community, and nation. So I look forward to hearing from our panelists, our royal empresses, as I chart our way through the quagmire of issues hampering I struggle for justice onto total African redemption. The first stage of liberation, as the Honorable Prophet Marcus Garvey declared, is for I to emancipate selves from mental slavery. For while others can free us from the physical chains, only I can free our minds. Give thanks. I will now turn it over to my esteemed co-host.
Give thanks, Honorable Priest Doggy, and again give thanks to Honorable Raseku Tafari, always a champion for the sisters and for the Black family, the Rastafari family, and also to our son, Daniel, for his welcoming remarks. Today's reasoning is very moving to me, and we have tried everything to make it as perfect as possible because we are in the presence of such incredible women, sisters, daughters, wives, grandmothers, nieces, aunties, who have been very instrumental over the decades in inspiring, changing the discourse, the narrative that was spoken about before in terms of Eurocentric models of women, and even within the Rastafari movement, helping sisters like myself as early as the 80s. I remember Sister Carol, Queen Mother Moses in New York, going to City College, getting their university degrees. These were inspiring moments in time. And we're so pleased that today our panelists are also intergenerational. So we have, for instance, Sister Nikki, who is the baby of the bunch, if you will. And so we will be able to get a wide variety of voices, perspectives, and reasoning on the subtopic. Just to repeat, as Daniel mentioned, challenging Eurocentric stereotypes, exploring roles, responsibilities, and concerns for successful models for Rastafari woman to flourish and fully participate in the advancement of the Rastafari movement. So without further ado, I'm going to share the the mic forward to Priest Doggy, and he will take us right into our presenters. As Jadaniel said, we'll be having questions at the end. Sister Keisha will not be with us very long, so we'll try to see if we can text her some questions. But Priest Doggy, I returned it to you.
Yes, Mama, give thanks. The Empress that's about to speak, I knew her from she was a wee princess. I've watched her grow and blossom into a beautiful Empress, and she has taken up a vital role within our community, wherein she is a mentor, a social worker, a counselor. She is using all her woman intuition and her mother nurturing care, to guide us through some of these struggles that we face. We all, without, some of us don't accept it or understand it, but we all suffer from post-traumatic slavery syndrome. And we are struggling, a lot of us are struggling in dealing with it, in rationalizing our reality. And the Empress's role is vitally needed among us because she is able to nurture, I and I, guide I and I, lead I and I to a solution to those problems. And, mental health, as my brethren say, it's a mental health problem that we all face, under this kind of madness in the West here and worldwide that we live through. We all have to be a little bit crazy to deal with it, and some of us more so. So without ado, Empress Keisha, the floor is yours. You can introduce yourself, all your accolades.
Oh, give thanks for that introduction, Jadagi. I give thanks for permission to speak. You are my elder, so I will accept that as permission for me to speak. I give thanks to our divine majesties. We always have to give honor for the king and the empress because, we've learned what excellence is through their example, and we give thanks for that. And what I'm going to talk about today is going to be very sensitive, and I only have 15 minutes. My introduction is not important. I'm just a vessel of light. And so I want to channel that light. And I also want to very quickly honor and recognize the ancestors whose shoulders we stand on. When we heal, each of us, we heal 7 generations before us and those to come. So imagine what journey the body and the mind and the soul has to go through, and the spiritual conviction that we have to have for the healing of our mind. So I do not want to go into what I have to bring to the table without a moment of creating a portal for light. Not just what I'm going to speak about, but all of the goddesses who are going to speak today. And everyone who's bringing this is a heavy topic. And Dr. Desta might not know how much she informed me in this segment of my presentation. But when she sent us the line of events today, she put a quote from the Empress Menen, and it said, "All women of the world should struggle to bring harmony and justice." Struggle. So with struggle, we need to take care of ourselves. And so I'm going to teach you all a very quick breathing activity that I would like for us to do together. And you can do this on your own. And we're just going to breathe, and we're going to make the infinity sign. So the infinity sign is like this, right? That's the infinity symbol. So join me, Jadagi. We're going to start from the center, right? And we're going to breathe in, going to the left. And when we go back to the center, breathe out. Breathe in. Breathe out. One more time. to the center. And why I did the infinity is because we're infinite beings. And if we can engage with the symbolism, because remember, signs and symbol rule the world. If we can engage in the symbolism and connect ourselves through our breath to get centered. So now we just created a portal and a vessel of light. And I'm going to go ahead and start. I'm going to be speaking about mental health within Rastafari women, but I'm also going to just be talking about solutions to addressing what we face emotionally. What is mental health? Mental health is, the mind is the mothership. It guides all of our thoughts, our feelings, and our actions. Everything we do is governed by our mind. Everything that we create comes from. So when we don't feel good in our mind, we're conditioned to ignore that because we think I can walk, I can talk, but if you have a broken leg, you go to the doctor, you run to the hospital, you make sure that your leg gets taken care of because you can't walk. The mind is the most ignored area of the body. So I'm going to explain what that means and what influences affect the status of our mind. Okay, so mental health is basically the wellness of your mind. That's all, it's so taboo. Oh, mental health, I don't have a mental health problem. I'm not going to speak to anyone. I don't have to speak to anyone. All it is checking in with the status of your mind and where you are, how you're feeling, how you're addressing your feelings. So our mental health is affected by both internal and external forces. So I'm going to talk about what we commonly speak on, which Jadagi touched on, Raseku touched on. We love talking about external forces. We love talking about what are some of those external forces? I'm going to go into them. We love talking about white supremacy. We love talking about patriarchy of white supremacist culture. We love talking about systemic oppression. We love talking about the food culture, GMO, and how Babylon is killing us. We never talk about the internal forces that contribute to our mental health. Some of us have been suffering mentally as young children. Many of us come from family structures that, because of our history living in the diaspora and growing in the West, rooted from slavery and the slave experience, many of our families never learned how to love. They never learned how to love a child. And so I'm going to ask everyone in the room today a question. Think about it for a minute. How old were you when you needed the most love in your life? How old were you? You can remember that age when you felt like you needed just a little bit more love. That is a significant time of your life. And that person who needed the most love, whether he or she was 7, 8, 9, 10, 6, 5, some of us remember as young as 4, that person lives inside of you as an adult. So sometimes we might react to a situation defensively and we think that's who we are. I'm just a defensive person. But in reality, it is a response to how you learn. So if you grew up in a home where you were ridiculed and criticized, and those of us from the Caribbean, some of that is a part of the culture. It's undeniable. What we deny is the effect that it has on our adult lives. We strongly believe that if we just choose a spiritual path, and I've worked with a lot of Rasta families. I've counseled many of children. And trust me, I've always had that one parent who just said, just take it to Haile Selassie. Is that the solution? How do we heal something that we're not willing to face? And denial it's something that we resort to help ourselves. Because if we can deny something, we don't have to address it. We can just put it to rest and we can bury it. But we're looking at many of us within the tradition dying of conditions that one time never plagued us. Heart disease, diabetes, mental health, and the status of your mind, it affects your body. It's a body, mind, and soul connectivity and connection. So what I'm talking about today is we do face the cultural, issues such as patriarchy, white supremacy. But once we choose Rastafari and we come into this path, sometimes it serves as a way to mask things that we really need to face. We also face another level of abuse that also triggers our state of mind. How many of us have been isolated by family members? How many of us were marginalized, ostracized? How many of us may have experienced some ridicule for choosing Rastafari? How many of us even may have faced some bullying, sending our children to school? How many of us struggled with setting healthy boundaries with family members or others because we never learned that? That is all connected to that inner child and how we learn to relate with everyone around us. So, because I only have 15 minutes and there's so much to share, and I really wish that I had more time, but I want to go through some things with you and I want to talk about the solutions. Let me get on. Excuse me. So, if you've ever found yourself feeling empty inside, a lack of contentment, right? Crying for love, attention, and nurturing, feeling like you don't feel connected to anyone, if you've ever felt like you are unlovable, if you've ever felt often like you're not good enough, how many times do we suffer with low self-esteem, but we don't connect that feeling to our past? We have to reconnect with past trauma. And what I'm sharing with you today is not my opinion. I'm actually, this is study, this is research, and this is the reality. We have to reveal what we need. In order for us to heal, we have to reveal it. And we cannot heal in isolation. We can only heal in love. I'm going to say that again because it's imperative. We cannot heal in isolation. We can only heal in love. So it's important for us to identify loving connectivity. Find someone you can trust. If you don't feel like you want to talk to a therapist, if you don't feel like there's someone you can trust out there, I have some resources. You can reach out to me. But it is imperative that we do not suffer alone. How many times because we grew in a family structure where sexual abuse was the norm, physical abuse was the norm, emotional abuse was the norm, calling a child stupid was the norm, or challenging a child's worth was the norm. So we become adults who either repeat that or we marry a spouse who's doing the same. How many times have we normalized toxicity within the culture? Okay, so I don't know where my timing is, but if you feel like you attract,
I think you have about another 2 minutes.
Okay. So if you often doubt yourself and struggle with decision making, you're definitely struggling with a wounded inner child. You're definitely struggling with parts of yourself that are unresolved and have never been tended to. And we cannot blame anyone. We have to step away from the victim role. We have to take our power and command the right to heal, because we have that's why that quote that Dr. Desta sent, that we have to be willing to struggle. To struggle. I love that quote. It struck a chord in me. So I'm going to share with you guys 4 tips very quickly on how to cultivate a relationship with your wounded inner child. And the first one is you need to overcome your own attitudes of criticism, rejection, or denial of your child within. Remember, I asked you guys, how old were you when you needed the most love? Stop ridiculing that child. Stop criticizing and rejecting yourself. Stop looking for someone else to accept you and start with accepting yourself first. The second one, bring out your inner child. Have fun, laugh. Sometimes I feel like we can be so rigid because Rastafari is a very serious tradition and we get very serious about it, but we can have fun. So learn to have fun, learn to play in a healthy way and create from that. Paint, draw, have a good time. Identify the positive needs of your inner child. This is number 3. Identify the positive needs. So what do I mean by that? You might be in a situation where you're triggered because you do have a wounded inner child and you might want to react and get mad at someone. But that might be a moment for you to do something for yourself. Maybe you need to take a warm bath. Maybe you need to give yourself a hug before you react. But learn what your needs are. Learn what you need first. And then the last one is nurture your inner child on a daily basis through intentional healing. Your healing should be intentional. Okay? So find the resources. Do what you have to do. I'm talking to you all now, and I have crystals on my laptop. That's intentional for me. I know that when I do public speaking, sometimes I get a little nervous. So I use my crystals to balance me. That's what I need. That's for me. That's my intentional healing. So you got to learn what you need and give it to yourself. Don't let nobody tell you that it's bad. Okay? If it's good, and you should do it. And so that's my time. I have a course that I offer called Healing the Inner Child from Pain to Purpose, and it's saving lives. So if you're interested in my course, you all are welcome to visit me at mymovementsforchange.com. I didn't give an introduction, but I also host a tour to Ghana twice a year. I just returned from Ghana, and that is a part of the healing work, because Spirit came to me and said, you're healing emotionally, but they got to go home to the motherland. So I started to take people to Ghana with my husband and my family and I. And so acomahealingarts.org, I'll put it in the chat, but you all are welcome to contact me. I'll put my website and everything in the chat. And I'm struggling to in the balance, like the goddess Empress Menen reminded us.
Give thanks, Empress Keisha, for such a moving presentation. While the sister identify the post-traumatic slave syndromes that we all suffer from, you know, those unresolved pain bodies that we grow to live with and sometimes think that they are normal, but they are not. She says that we have to get in touch with our inner child, you know, and embrace that inner child. We have to face those unresolved pain bodies. And part of doing that is to freeing up the spirit. Like she said, laugh a little, you know, love, enjoy life. You know, there's an old saying, all work and no play makes Jadi a dull man. Well, you know, that's what she's saying, you know, chill sometime, you know. So we give thanks, Empress Keisha, for such moving presentation. We feel the passion, and I totally understand what you are addressing. Give thanks. Mama D.
Oh, give thanks again. This is really an honor to be able to speak so frankly. As you said, to heal, we must reveal. And the journey of the Rasta woman, when we look at the origin decades ago, you barely saw a Rasta woman on the street in the 60s. By about the 70s, when you start to see one or two Rasta women on the street, really, you know, like I said, late 60s maybe. So even our visibility, you know, has been a challenge, and the perception. So you've really hit on it. And we're not just therefore carrying on our backs the burden of Eurocentric views and perspectives of how we should be, but also as African women, and also again as Rastafari women. So it's a lot to carry, but hopefully this will continue to help us with the healing process. I am really honored to introduce the next speaker. I met her in Chicago a couple years ago. Many may know her as the author of Empress Menen Chronicles. And Dr. Asantewaa Apongwade, her presentation is called Let the Circle Be Unbroken. It is a PowerPoint. And I would love to introduce her as creator and editor of the Empress Menen Chronicles and founder of the annual celebration Empress Menen Day in Chicago. So Empress Menen, Dr. Asantewaa, I turn it over to you.
Give thanks, Dr. Desta, Mama Desta. It really has been a blessing, my relationship with you and getting to know the larger community. I just want to give my greetings to the entire community, of course, to their divine majesties who enable our lives, to our ancestors, and to the forces that protect us in a system that is vile and on an earth that really is our only home. I want to screen share to show my PowerPoint. And to begin, I think I've had enough of an introduction. So let the circle be unbroken beyond the Eurocentric model of female empowerment. For Rastafari women, a return to our authentic African center. And I want to begin by saying that much of what I'm saying here I heard already said, so I'll go quickly over those points, but I want to linger in some places. But here, of course, drawing that sharp contrast that we are not the same as white women. And there is a move right now that I feel not only in the United States, but all over the world to pull together women of all colors in a coalition where the white woman's agenda is out front and what she desires is what everybody has to be about. We see some of this in, like, say, for example, the Women's March that took place, 2 of them here in the United States, but then the agenda of other women is kind of, on the periphery or the margin, and we are saying that we are not the same, and it is a false coalition between especially Black and white women, because as women are seeking, white women or European women are seeking liberation from their husbands and from the social society, the social authority set up by their husbands, fathers, uncles, sons. Black women are seeking liberation from the white woman and the white man, because both of them have historically been oppressors to her, right? And so we cannot get in a situation where the white woman's agenda is out front, because she has historically contributed. And there's no space here to talk about all of that, but history bears that out. And finally, her highest value is to use her man as the standard of progress, that I can be just like this man. I can wear his suit. I can speak with the authority that he normally has, but I do not want to disrupt the system. I do not want to overturn this system, because in the final analysis, it also serves me. But the African woman cannot get on board with that, not going forward, not in a situation where we're asking for a new faculty of interpretation. We cannot get on board with, let's just mend this system and make men and women do the same exact things. In fact, the African woman is saying that not only do I want to be liberated from the white man and his woman, I want the ideas of the white man that have crept into our midst, in our private homes and in our community circles, our Rastafari houses, to be eradicated. These ideas, namely and chiefly, that women are inferior and that their place is to be silent in any given situation and let men run it. We're asking for the eradication of such ideas completely and totally. Not only that, she wants to be seen as a complementary person in the relationship with men and women. We're not seeking parity in everything. We're seeking that we get respected for what we do bring. And her highest value is to be given time, space, and material to fully manifest her God self that is within her. Right? And not necessarily to be like, well, if men do this, then I have to do it. Men are not the standard by which we should be measured. And I will say more if people need further clarification later. But here I want to say that what model do we have for this? I heard this word come up. What model are we using? Understanding ourselves to not be able to use what is in the Bible, as Rasa Sekou said, with Paul and Pauline letters, and as he rightly pointed out, the book of Genesis, and the things that he was writing to the Greeks really have nothing to do with us. And I submit that if we want to look for a pristine way forward, a way that is more centered in ourselves, to wear garments that truly fit us socially and politically, we must look to Africa. Because it is in Africa that we see this woman realized spiritually and politically. And we see that, if you go to Africa today, you will find commonality with the general public, and you will find yourself as an African woman in a space where you see women in public, and we're the same. And that's beautiful. But I'm saying, if you really want to understand what the Rastafari woman is about, what she is asking for, how she would look if unfettered, look at the African priestess, the priesthood of African women wherever they exist. And you will begin to see a woman much more fully realized. You will see that things that are normal for us as Rastafari women are indeed in that space. Things like growing of the locks of our hair. Things like covering the head for spiritual reason. Things like the modesty of dress. Things like understanding that menstruation is a sacred time. It's a time away. In fact, a lot of the rules that we see around Rastafari, as I began to study African culture, I realized that, oh, these were rules that were misunderstood and then forced upon the biblical text, because it is in the 7-day period of menstruation that traditional priestess don't go to the temple, do not touch sacred objects, do not touch drums, but it's only for those 7 days. It's not for every time she's there. You know what I'm saying? So a lot of the things that we say women should not really need to end while menstruating. And then when we get a woman who is post and through menopause, she is free to officiate at any time, right? And so this holding of menstruation as a sacred communication with spirit and spirit time is most necessary. And one of the things I've had the awesome privilege of doing is training young girls here in the city of Chicago to realize the cycles of a woman's life. And every time I say to them and their mothers, would you take the 7 days around your menstruation off, where you don't cook, you don't have to tend the kids, you don't have to fulfill any household responsibility? The answer is resoundingly yes. I need that break. As someone who, my name is called in the house more than any other name. Mommy, 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 right? I could take a break. I could use a break from that. I would appreciate that. And lastly, what I want to say that we see really strongly from the continent of Africa, and using African priestess as our model going forward and not the Bible, is that we see that women form coalitions. And this is very key and important, because we'll hear the Empress Menen say this. We need coalitions. Women form strong teams, not only for spiritual reasons, but then they step into the society periodically and remind the leaders of the society that you are out of balance and that things are out of balance and that you need to correct it. And really, you can look at the Atete, women of Ethiopia. You can look at the Akan, priestesses of Ghana, and you will see them come forward at different times in the year to make sure the society is balanced for women. Because as being, like what they say, physically weaker than men, there are times and places where advantage can be taken, but women working together as teams is what prevents that, right? And so what I have not seen in Rastafari in the 20 years that I've been in and living in the Midwest of the United States is those really strong teams of Rasta women, intentional teams, with the expressed intent to keep things balanced, right? And I'm saying that a return to that would be awesome and welcomed. And finally, what I'm going to say here is that the traditional show of power that we've seen in the society is to be loud. It is to be, like we see in all our governments and leaders, to be aggressive or to threaten with violence if we want to get our way. But one thing that we as African Rastafari women can learn when we look at the continental models is that that is not necessarily the way forward. Women were awesome and strong. They fought, right? But their traditional power was from retreat. And I want to just take the rest of my time to really fully flush this idea out, that you do not necessarily have to jump in front of the camera at all times to be a powerful person. Empress Menen, before she made this wonderful speech called My Address to the Women of the World, she took 16 days of fasting and retreat. Not only did she stop herself from eating, she went into seclusion. And it's coming out of the 16 days of fast that she came out with a new vision that I wonder, has the world even still understood? Her message was essentially, listen, women, you are in the driver's seat. She starts off that speech by saying, listen, men have the evil people who are our neighbors are trying to bring us civilization. I know their intent, and their intent is wrong. Reread the first couple lines of that and you will get that messaging there. And then she says, you know what? Women, it is up to you. She says, all women in the universe should unite their voices and demand firmly that the horrors of this useless bloodshed be stopped and that this ruin be avoided. She's saying, women, you can do it. We are in the driver's seat. These are your husbands that you influence with your comfort, with your words, by making yourself available. These are your sons who you birthed, who you talk to, who you have raised up. You know exactly what to say to him to get him to do what you want. Do not make yourself passive in this situation. From retreat, she came with a new vision of what the role that women should play in the world, saying that don't let the men run this truck essentially off the cliff. Take the civilization back. Use the power that you have. And the same thing was true for Queen Mahumusa, who we call Nyabingi, and I've heard her name said already here today, so I won't rehash her story. But she retreated. And when they wrongfully took the throne from her son, she went in. And she, as you see her here, being covered and put in a basket, put in a drum, she began to speak with an older, more ancient, more powerful voice. And she successfully toppled and held at bay the British, the Germans, and the Belgians, or the people from Belgium. She successfully held them at bay. Of course, they eventually captured her, but did Nyabingi really go anywhere? I mean, isn't she the reason that we're standing here today? So give thanks for this time to share. Of course, I am the founder of Empress Men in Day Chicago, and we have our annual celebration coming up. And I'll put the link where one can register for it in the chat. And we'll be online this year, speaking more about the Empress and her wonderful contributions to us. So give thanks for this opportunity to share.
Wow, give thanks, Dr. Asantewa. So powerful, really, really powerful, brilliant, moving. And it's a reminder of who we are. And this is what we need. This is what we need to feed our souls. You've touched on everything that is so important. You talked about, first of all, that we're different. Many Rastafari women and even Black women are beginning to subscribe to this model of feminism. We don't know anything about that. That's not necessary even in our vocabulary. We're not seeking equality, as you say, with our brethren, but you're asking what model are we using, and that we must look to Africa if we really want answers to who we're supposed to be, as the Rastafari woman is akin to the traditional African priestess. You also spoke about the importance of teamwork. And what I love is that everything that you're presenting here is pinned to indeed Empress Menen and traditional knowledge and understanding of the indigenous African woman. And it's this genetic memory that I see coming out of you, and so we feel you. We not only see you, but we feel you. Finally, two really important points that I want to re-emphasize what you said about the retreating. It's not just necessarily rushing in and being in front of the camera and being loud and why we're going. No, it's that retreat moment. And within that moment, what it is that we are able to gain so that we can go forward. So we give thanks, and we want to remind once April 3rd, we're trying to put the posters up earlier. We're having some difficulties. Maybe we'll put them later, but certainly April the 3rd for the Empress Menen Day celebration. And please, Dr. Yas, share your information in the message group so that we can have it. Again, Betamama Seganalu, Asante Sana, thank you so much. Priest Doggy, I turn it over to you.
Wow. Powerful. If anyone had any notion that the African woman was a simple, weak woman, they need to just listen to Dr. Yasantewa. Yeah, man, powerful, my sister. And one thing that I will say that I took from your presentation, a very important aspect that also affects the brethren, is returning to the sisterhood. Creating that sisterhood that nurtures, that mentors even the young ones that are coming up, because we find that over the decades, there have been a separation between the generations. And we find it hampering even among the brethren. We might do business together, we might socialize, but when it comes down to sitting down and dealing with our Father's business without the ego and the arrogance, we find that problematic. So my sister, very, very, very moving and inspiring presentation. Give thanks. Our next presenter is Queen Ifia Seals, Nyabingi International, Rastafari activist out of Jamaica. This is another sister now that has grown up in the Rastafari faith, coming out of a very prominent Rastafari family. And I must say, one of my elders that I love dearly, one of the first elders I knew from around at Matches Lane at the Ital store, the first Ital store in Kingston, okay, Bongo Irie Lion, you know, who has been a great inspiration to I and to many ones of my generation, seeing that have stepped forward. So without ado, I will turn the floor over to my esteemed sister for her presentation.
Yes, perfect love in the house, perfect love. I am so grateful and honored. And I almost can say all have been said through the word sown and narrates of I and I beloved sisters who spoke before myself. And it encapsulates that fullness of Rastafari, family orientedness. I truly give thanks. Give thanks, I love it, Priest Dougie. Give thanks for all the amples who have put this event together and host a very critical aspect of I family relation that has been seemingly lacking for too long. You know, they mentioned Bingy Arian, you know, just boost people a little bit of emotion, just recounting from, you know, Matches Lane, and that's where I moved from as youth with our parents, Bingy Arian, Mama Yanzi, in coming over to St. Catherine here in Jamaica, you know. So when I mentioned that, it's a lot of emotion, but I give thanks for the relationship and give thanks for his strength and the energy and the platform from which they have held I, so I can be able to declare clearly the glory and majesty of I Divine Majesty Rastafari, Haile Selassie I. So I will start, as I said, my topic is my journey through the conduit, my Rastafari journey through the conduit of the Nyabingi order, from where I was, you know, grown up and everything, and I've experienced my wider Rastafari family, which do I respect and love, you know. So I say, prince and princesses must tread out of Babylon. Ethiopia shall now stretch forth her hands and her hearts unto the Most High Jah Rastafari. How thou most high of Ethiopia, I Thine Majesty, thy iris trod into I hearts to dwell I in the path of righteousness. Lead I, help I to forgive that I must be forgiven. Teach I love, loyalty on earth as it is in Mount Zion. Endure I with thy wise mind, knowledge and understanding, to do thy will. Thy blessing unto I, that the hungry be fed, the naked clothed, the sick nourished, the aged protected, the infant cared for, the shelterless be sheltered, and the ignorant be educated. I deliver I from the hands of I enemies, the fearfulness that are out there, the onslaught of the psychological trauma, that I must be fruitful in these first days. When I enemies are past and decayed, in the depth of the sea, in the depth of the earth, or in the belly of the cruel beast. Or give I a place in the ever-living kingland and kingdom. Let the word of I mouth and the meditation of I heart be humbly accepted in the eyesight of Most High, Jah Rastafari. My presentation is mostly based on my journey as a Rastafari that was born into the tribe, and I've experienced different segments of the journey. My sisters and I is a reflection of what some of what I'll be sharing. And I said though I and I were discriminated in society, whether in school, because we experienced a lot of that, and I hear Sister Queen Keisha Makiba spoke about that, and also Dr. Ya, the impact of the societal trauma from children. We were so traumatized and have been so traumatized. Every move you make in the society, you find that even our peers, when we went to school, when we went to kindergarten, when we went to primary school, when we went to high school, it reduced a little bit when I and I were in high school. I'm going into the stage of, tertiary institution. But the trauma, I have seen it, I have observed it throughout the years for over 40 years that the society have perpetuated against I&I people. You go to the shop, you go to school, you walk on the road, and there was always victimization. There was always discrimination. It's only today Rastafari in the Jamaican society have become more accepting. I know, and so it has been a journey. I emphasize the Nyabingi because the Nyabingi drum, as Sister Keisha Makeda said, she used the crystal as a means of solitude and stabilizing her irids and to keep her on the path of consistency. And so for myself, I use the Nyabingi drums. It really has been a part of our ancient representation as it was used and always been used within the Nyabingi, that it's a weapon for healing or a weapon for protection. And whenever time, my father, I'm probably getting sentimental with that when he sat on the drum, having moved from Kingston, West Kingston, where there I know Priest Dougie, how that environment were and has been a kind of violent environment. And so coming over into the country was more quiet space, was more connected to hurtfulness, the earth, Mother Earth. But the Nyabingi drum was what took away the fear of what they call the duppy in the country space. And so, as children, we would be a little bit fearful that the community that I live in is called Augustown. And the people from the community said the reason the community is called Augustown in St. Catherine was because every August, according to them, the duppy would come out. But and so they had to go home, and go into their personal space very early. So, but when Bingi Irie and I family moved over here, among other Rastafari family, 2 other Rastafari family, he brought the consecration of the Nyabingi, where he held a Nyabingi here, along with the collective. And so for some reason that had a psychological healing for me. And it has been like that, a bed of rock, a foundation from which I have been standing. The drums, the Rastafari drum, the African drums, the sound that it brings, it really is part and parcel of the healing that I and I as Rastafari African people have to reckon with, And a lot of times the perspective and the representation of the drum has been misled. And so that is one of the responsibility, I think, of the woman to bring forward the purpose and the symbolism of the drums. And for me, I emphasize the Nyabingi drums. Many times it crossed my mind, during those times of struggle in our school environment, in our work environment, out there in the general populace, that I didn't want to trod Rastafari anymore. Because when you go to school, the children would just, from hearing the stigmatization of Rastafari, the children would just pull off our tongues and throw it on the ground, because as Dr. Ya emphasized, the times when it's important for you to cover your nuts and the kind of your hair, your locks, your antenna, that it's not always exposed out there, and the kind of energy that I draw. So my father did, and parents really, mother did really emphasize that. So when we went to school, we always have our terms on our head, and the children who didn't understand that it was part and parcel of our African tradition would pull our terms off and throw it on the ground. And so that was really some traumatizing experience that we have had. But not just that, then when you come into the Rastafari space now, when you seek your solitude, you know, in the collective space in the Nyabingi order, though the drum was a protective source and a healing energy for I and I, there were always those, mostly our male counterpart, who would seemingly express that colonial concept of having the woman on the backside of the representation of I and I family. That too in itself traumatized a lot of I and I, that even my contemporary chose not to tread Rastafari anymore because of this perspective that has been expressed and shared within the family, and from my personal experience, particularly the Nyabingi order. I love the Nyabingi order, the general concept from where it came from, and in recent years, I and I are learning more about the female energy, and it always felt to me that it's connecting from the line of the man to the wombfulness of our perpetuity. And so I held that as a protection to me, and I never looked too much on the personal aspect of it, because I know that there was a greater depth in its representation, that it had to do with the infinite life-giving source that came from the rootedness of I and I's tradition. Within the trauma, the trauma and the mental health situation is another aspect of I and I family that has not been looked at, you know, and give thanks for Sister Keisha Makeda, who emphasized that, and that is where she specializes in, you know. And it's a serious problem within I and I family, because a lot of I and I are living in denial. And it's something that I and I need to have a psychologist, psychotherapist, you know, have a collective space where I and I can share these emotional experiences that we have had and how it is impacting our life, our performance. You can see it in the leadership of the Rastafari, and from my perspective within the Nyabingi, that there are so much deep-rooted trauma that our family has experienced, the systematic oppression, and I think that Rastafari have gotten it double jeopardy, because I remember when my grandparents didn't want to own us. They denied Bingi Iri. I know that Mama Yanzi, my mother, family from the root of Maroon, was more receptive to I and I. But at the same time, they had their reservation. They couldn't deal with the Haile Selassie concept. They couldn't deal with the locks thing. And so they keep us at bay. But my father's parents, we did not know them. We weren't able to interact with the root from where they came to say, yes, we have had a good relationship with our grandparents, and we know their demeanor, we know their characteristics, and so on, to see how we could identify some of those. We did not have that. They practically denounced Bingi Iri, and in turn denouncing I and I as a family. So I and I have had a lot of traumatic experience, and to come and experience it in the Rastafari is really a even more challenging and hurtful situation. So as I and I reckon with I and I wombfulness and the importance of expressing I and I greater potentiality as women, I and I have to find a way, even with I and I imperfection and differences, a consolidated part in which I and I can bring all the elements that I and I are bringing here today in a collective space that reckon with the importance of the concept that the Majesty Haile Selassie first emphasized. Unity is the accepted goal. How does that work within the team spirit of what I and I are expressing? How do we synchronize our varying experiences to enable it to bring I and I to that wholesome level and that wholesome destination that I and I seek, repatriation and reparation? This infrastructures are some things that it's difficult to establish because of the same mental problems. So I guess we might have to start from there. And I know that agriculture plays a vital role within all of that. Rastafari, Haile Selassie said, agriculture is a sacred task. And so I have to galvanize that. I love agriculture. That's where I find my solitude. I go there and I do it on small scale and on larger scale because that's where I eat, that's where I can make some money, and that's what keeps me and my family and those around me healthy. So I think that is something also from a psychological perspective, from a mental perspective, needs to be looked into. The herb is there, what they call the marijuana, ganja. How can we galvanize that, the whole embodiment of the economical aspect, the healing aspect, the food, all of it in I space, so I can be benefited, and for the family to have a more healthy, because the CBD is something that is good for the neurological self. And so I have to find a way in which I can galvanize all of that. One of the recommendations that I'm looking at is the structural establishment, of best practices and good governance, and hoping that I can even have a capacity building training that will allow I to understand a little better the responsibility that I are entrusted with, and that I are committing self within the administration of Rastafari, whichever department I will be seating in. And the economical sustainability through agriculture. I also would like at some point, mothers, along with the entire family, brethren and children, look at the 1983 RITA convention that took place here in Jamaica, where 22 pointers came out of. And I'm seeing like as though probably in some instances are reinventing the wheel, but it is there for to assess and to see how best I can apply them accordingly. So yeah, we give thanks, and there's so much more to say. I'm thankful for my mother, Queen Mama Yanzi, who have been that woman's strength. I remember we are in our home and the brethren would come to see my father, Bingi Ari, and would think that it's family orientedness, recognizing the authority of the Majesty in 1930 when he crowned with the Empress, that this is the level, this is the element that embodies the Africanness and I Rastafari-ness. But they would come and they would go in our kitchen and they would use our food, and they would prepare food, and when the food is prepared, they pass our food in a different section of the house. Like they're saying, you don't come into your kitchen, we are the man and we are the one who's responsible for in here. We have experienced those things. And for years, we talk among ourselves and like this, and probably these people are not, they're not bad persons, but because of the trauma and the misunderstanding of the family, because they have penalized us and damaged us and beat us so much, they take the family orientedness from it's that a lot of have been misled. And so we would watch these things. We'd watch my father, Bingi Ari, love him so much. Brethren, me and him tried almost everywhere. I'm tagging along behind him because that was a source of strength. With Mama Yanzi, foundation strength. And to see him have this Lion of Judah vehicle going across Jamaica, going to wherever the Rastafari gatherings are, and the man will go pick up the whole of the man them and leave us in the back. I'm like, Bingi Ari, how do you reach that perspective? Or how do you make that decision or make that determination all by yourself? So these are experiences that my mother had to endure with 7 girls. And so when our cycle is going on, Mama Yanzi couldn't go to the Bingi because she had to stay home with the children. And when the female child born, according to the culture and the principle of the Naya Bingi, she had to wait 4 months, while the person's woman who gave birth to a male child would wait only 3 months. So those are things that misrepresented the Majesty seating up, literally to show that don't go through these things. They are irrelevant. These are colonial concepts that that seeks to divide and rule I and I mind, rule I and I irids, and to take I and I out of the family orientedness that is so crucial in enabling a generation that is strong and focused. There seems so, it's a lot of things, and I have to write about it and to share it, and I'm really honored, and I'm not sure where my timing is at, because sometimes I'm all over the place. And we give thanks and praises unto the Majesty's love and mercies for being here, and ask the Irish be to continue to guide I and I with wise mind, knowledge, and understanding. Love Rastafari.
Wow.
Did my time complete?
Please, Doggy. Yeah, no, you it's perfect. You went about 45 seconds over.
I'm so happy.
No. Priest Doggy, turn it over to you.
Hi. Yeah, man. Give thanks. Yes. Her story sounds a lot like I and I story. It's the same discrimination. Talking about the discrimination in schools, in the society. Any Rastafari that grew up in Jamaica or the Caribbean can, identify with her story. Definitely. So my sister, we're all in the same ship, heading east, so we give thanks. I would like to share though, before I turn it over to Mama D, I would like to share, her bio here that she sent. Just a little thing because why I want to do this, I should have done it in the beginning. And because as a tribute to my humble elder, her dad, Ras Irie Lion, ones need to know a little about this family. The title is My Journey in Rastafari, like she said, through the conduit of Nyabinghi Order. Queen Sister Ifra Holmes Seals. Queen Sister Ifya Holmes Seals. Born and bred in the house of Rastafari within the Order of Nyabinghi. Wife to Ras Seela Seals. One of the 7 daughters of Nyabinghi Ancient, Irie Lion. Queen Mama Yanzian Bingi Irie Lion. The mother of 5 children and grandmother of 3. Holds a BA in healthcare administration and health psychology. A certified phlebotomist and a master of art in psychology recipient. Worked as healthcare administrator at the Duke Medical Facility, North Carolina, as well as assistant healthcare administrator in the Montessori School, Durham, North Carolina again. A founding member of the Rastafari Youth Initiative Council, which was established in Jamaica. First female chair of the Nyabinghi Administrative Council, Jamaica. Member of the Rastafari Alliance, Panama. Executive member of the North Carolina Rastafari Union, USA. And a member of the Nyabinghi Mansion, Jamaica. Community activist, small farmer of 6 acres of land, seamstress, and an entrepreneur. She wears many hats. My sister, look forward to hearing the eye later on in the Q&A segment. Mama D, your floor.
Give thanks. Such an honor and a pleasure. Queen Ifya is also my namesake. Desta is one of her names, and her daddy was always very proud and happy from the time you were was a little thing, So to see you blossom into this incredible Rastafari woman who understands the power of the drums and the healing and what it all means to us, and to be able to state it in this setting and platform, because it's not just Nyabinghi that's here. We have Congress, right? We have Bobo, we have 12 tribes of Israel, so many women, and we're sharing the same messages of healing, of empowerment, of strength to reclaim, because we don't need any permission. Authorization has already been granted. We don't need any permission. It's about, as you said, to synchronize the trauma and understand what is our destination, and to emphasize things like capacity building and training, and using or setting up economic sustainable systems through agriculture, and finally the visitation or revisitation of the 22 points. And that has come up quite a bit in our deliberation, our committee deliberation. The African Rastafari New Faculty of Overstanding Committee, the 22 points have often been referred to. I'm just delighted and thrilled. Really, I give thanks. For me, the next presentation is, how can I call it? She's not the boss in a sense, but yes, she is, because she challenged us. She put our feet to the fire and had a clarion call almost a year ago that has brought us to this stage now. And it's my honor to introduce Empress Marina Blake Esquire, who is going to present the role of the Rastafari Empress in nation building, wife, mother, grandmother, Pan-Africanist, social justice activist, practicing lawyer in New York, voted one of the top 10 immigration lawyers in the United States in 2019. And she's a member of the Haile Selassie I Foundation Law and Society, also a member of Ethiopian African Black International Congress, known as BOBO, Women's Freedom Liberation League. And she's also a member of the Rastafari Council of Ghana, doing a lot of work over there in Ghana. By the way, she lives both in Ghana and the United States. It's important to know the passion that Empress Marina has for those at home and abroad. She's also a member of the Empress of Zion, American Immigration Lawyers, an association of Black women attorneys, as well as a member of the New York County Lawyer Association, amongst many other things. She's published, she's an advocate, she's a voice, and like I said, she's the one that pushed us to this point that you see here. So if we want to give blame or accolades, we give it to our beloved Empress Marina. I turn it over to you. I love it.
Greetings. In the name of His Majesty and the Empress, Will Emmanuel I, Selassie I Jah, Rastafari. As Mama Desta said, I am Empress Marina Blake of the Ethiopia Africa Black International Congress. I'm speaking tonight, however, in my individual capacity as a Rastafari woman. And my presentation is entitled The Role of the Rastafari Empress in Nation Building. Now, nation building is generally defined as the coming together of a group of people from different backgrounds to unite for the collective good of the group. Within Rastafari culture, nation building is understood to specifically mean the uniting and restoration of Black people worldwide in the wake of the atrocities that have been committed against us. The starting point for nation building must be the formation and maintenance of strong, stable, functional families. This generally requires that both parents be present and fully engaged in the raising of the children so that the children can come out strong, self-sufficient, and conscious with a commitment to the Black race. However, we know the myriad social, political, and economic forces that are arrayed against us as a people to prevent the creation and preservation of strong Black families. For example, sociologists they talk about adverse childhood experiences, ACEs, and how they impact children's development. Examples of ACEs include poverty, death of a parent, parents' divorce or separation, parents who have served time in jail, exposure to violence in the home, living in a violent neighborhood, living with someone with mental illness or who is suicidal or mentally depressed, living with someone with drug or alcoholic addiction, treated differently in the home because of your complexion, colorism, which is very much, alive in our community, and the complete absence of a parent from the home, from the child's life, not having to do with the death of that particular parent. So these are some of the common adverse childhood experiences that affect development of a child, because these traumas and toxic stresses, they impact a child's brain development, affecting his or her ability to learn, in addition to negatively impacting the physical, mental, emotional, and behavioral health of the child. Studies state that 6 out of 10 black children have one or more of these adverse childhood experiences. So at such an alarming rate, we can only, it is no surprise that we as a race of people continue to have the negative experiences that we are having, because this is a predictable outcome of this type of behavior. Against this background, we as empresses must do our part in safeguarding the physical, emotional, and psychological health of our children, given the onslaught, that we are under. Of course, in order for us as empresses to do our jobs as mothers, as wives, as sisters, we need the full cooperation of the brethren. We also need Rastafari culture, equally important or even more important. We need Rastafari culture itself to be socially aware of our reality and to adjust the culture when necessary to make it adequately responsive to these destructive social forces which threaten to destroy our attempt at creating strong Black families, with the ultimate goal of thwarting our aim at nation building. In this connection, the Rastafari woman needs to be fully empowered to perform the role that she necessarily must play in building strong families. And Mama, the prior speaker, Queen Ifea, she mentioned for lack of a better word, sexism that was prevalent in Rastafari culture in much of the 70s, the 80s. We have experienced that, even growing up, even living on Bubble Hill for a few years in Jamaica. We experienced that separation, that assignment to a lower position within Rastafari culture based solely on our gender and nothing more. So these are the things that we must work to overcome, because we must be able to see the connection between maintaining those types of practices and the retardation then of the movement of the culture itself, like the lack of progress in the culture because of these quote unquote sexist practices. As I said, in order to move forward, we need the assistance of the brethren in terms of advancing the culture and making it more responsive to the needs of our society, right? So we need to be fully empowered to perform the role that we must perform. This means that the brethren, they must fully respect us, they must love us, and they must give us their full support. This may mean a man having to allow or to facilitate, assist his wife in returning to school to further her education or to acquire new skills that will help her to advance, not just personally, but also it will help to propel the family forward as the woman becomes more financially, economically empowered and independent and self-sufficient. Indeed, several studies have shown that the empowerment, very important point, the empowerment of the girl or the woman is the greatest weapon against poverty, disease, and injustice throughout the world. Let me repeat, the empowerment of girls is the greatest weapon against poverty, disease, and injustice throughout the world. Rastafari culture must acknowledge this and take steps to erase the gender inequalities that exist within the culture that prevent the full development and advances of the empresses. To be sure, this type of sexism did not begin with the Rasta man. He inherited it from the wider society. However, we had hoped that it would have ended with him through his efforts and intervention. That has not, sadly, that has not been the case. The Rastafari Empress, to be sure, they have been doing a tremendous job of pushing the race forward by working hard and raising the children, sometimes against seemingly insurmountable odds from both within and without the culture. We must honestly, brethren and empresses, I implore us all to honestly examine the culture and look at how many of our practices have a disabling effect on the Black race in general and on the empresses in particular. But economic empowerment is but one aspect of development and nation building. We must also institute systems and processes that respond to any abusive, neglectful, or harmful behavior by brethren towards empresses and children within Rastafari culture. Certain behaviors are not only inconsistent with nation building, but they are nation destroying in their impact. We must provide education, listen closely, we must provide education and information that would make Rastafari culture discard the beliefs, customs, and practices that are obstructive to human development and which promote and maintain gender inequality. It is worth repeating. We must provide education and information that would make Rastafari culture discard the beliefs, customs, and practices that are obstructive to human development and which promote and maintain gender inequality. Brethren and empresses, principle and progress are not inimical to each other. We can live by principle and still facilitate the development and the progress of the Rastafari woman. Give thanks. Blessed love.
Give thanks, Empress Marina. You know, you always are compelling with the advocacy. Most of all, looking at the foundation, as you said, it begins with the formation of the family. That's the essence of our community, country, continent. So you emphasize that relationship. You also emphasized on several points the need for us to do this with our brethren. We are not advocating women step away. Again, this is not feminism or women's lib or anything. Our root is based in Africa together, the Alpha and Omega principles. So you emphasize. The other thing that you drove home was that educating a woman was the weapon against poverty, disease, and injustice. Finally, the fact that principle and progress can indeed coexist. We don't have to give up principles in order to stifle. It shouldn't be that at all. Principle should actually be the fuel that takes us, that allows us to progress. So the question that you're begging us all to consider are best practices and being honest and frank when we look at principles and things that we have actually devised, possibly making ourselves our own worst enemy and handcuffing ourselves, right? How and what can we change? What needs to morph? We are called a movement, Rastafari movement, so we're not stagnant. Finally, you use the word behavior. And, you know, it is said your behavior shall be your savior. So whether you're that abusive man to spouse and children or abusive woman, because we have some of those too, you know, we need to have systems in place to check each other, overstand each other, because as our first speaker, Keisha, spoke of, when we talk about the trauma, and even Sister Ifia spoke about the trauma, many times people are damaged and in pain. So it's not necessarily about retribution and punishment, but you use the word overstanding and even that compassion. So we do give thanks for those, the effort to really educate us, as you said, and to begin to create an environment of sensitivity and overstanding that we can, what is it? Reveal so that we can heal. Give thanks, Empress Marina. Priest Doggy, I turn it over to you.
I give thanks. Yeah, Empress Marina. A lot of what she listed there has to do with what Sister Keisha spoke of, post-traumatic slavery syndrome. Those are symptoms, you know, of what we have been affected by, you know, throughout the decades, throughout the centuries. It's 500 years we've been under the yoke. 500 years we have been beaten to be somebody else. You know. And I will take the liberty here to speak on behalf of, you know, the Rastafari Brethren. Even though we have failed miserably and we are lacking, it is I and I, the Rastafari Brethren, who endeared our sisters, our mothers, our daughters, you know, giving them back their titles, queen, princess, empress, mother, you know. So we have been attempting to address the situation, but we as brethren are also suffering from the symptoms that we have adopted or have been beaten into us. So I give thanks that we are now having this very measured conversation, you know, dealing with such critical issues, because it all comes back to that one simple, you know, definition: mental health problems. And we don't mean mad. You know, when people hear mental health, they think about insanity. We're not talking about insanity now. You know, some of us are bipolar because we are so confused in our inner spirit that we are not able to see the path clearly all the time. So from time to time, we lose vision of you know, our center, you know, and get caught up in emotions and react. You know, so there's a lot that we have to do to heal ourselves, but we need to do it together as we are doing here today. Speaking clearly to each other, speaking openly to each other. Stop covering up, you know, things that harm us most because we are afraid to deal with them. You know, let them rock the pillars of this society that we have grown up in. Let us challenge them. And one of the pressing matters that we have not yet touched on since this webinar is the fact that Christianity, Western Christianity, has played a big part in dumbing down our sisters, in placing them in the background. Because remember now, Africa originally was a matriarchal society. Give thanks. And as I say that, I will now introduce another sister that lives between the West here.
I pray the first, the flyers.
Oh, yes. Sorry, Mama. Give thanks for the reminder.
Each one.
Yes, we will now, you know, highlight some of the events to come, you know, both from the ARNFO and the community. As Daniel, Empress Colleen.
Okay. Yes, just one moment because we want to make sure
we're bringing that up. Our apologies.
As we wait, I will continue to reason. The role of the Empress is vital. If we look at Africa and the wars, many of the wars that have been fought in Africa, it is the mothers that, you know, have many times stopped those wars after they get fed up of burying their sons and their husbands and their brothers, they are the ones that have stepped forward with consciousness and said to the brethren them, no, this has to stop. You know, so many of the wars, our empresses are the ones that have saved our lives. You know, and today we see it happening again with a panel like this, where the empresses are taking charge. Here are some of the events coming up. Ones can lock in these dates and take part in them because it's part of the healing process. They say knowledge is power, so let's be empowered. That's Sister Keisha's card for ones that need her assistance.
Okay.
So
Over to
without
you
ado
again,
now,
Debbie.
we will
Yes.
go into our next speaker, who doesn't really need any introduction to most, if not all of I and I, you know. One Zuya, Queen Mother Moses, who is a chaplain. She is EOZ's Chief Education Officer. She's a community activist based between the United States of America and Ghana. She will be showing a PowerPoint to depict, you know, what she wants to share with us today. A very passionate speaker again, you know, ambassador for the Rastafari movement. She travels extensively, attending most events globally, you know, and always bringing back a report to I and I that we can be informed of what is taking place. So without ado, I will turn the mic over to Queen Mother Moses, my sister. Is there a difficulty here?
Yes, apparently she's not in the meeting anymore. We'll have to try and get her back on.
Okay, well, we don't want to hold up anything at this point. You know, want to stay on task and stay on time. Mama Desta, I'll turn this over to you.
Give thanks. So while we're waiting to get Queen Mother Moses on, we're gonna go ahead to the next speaker, who is Sister Nikki Kane. I recently met Nikki in Jamaica. She was working on a project for us. I heard that she was one of the most incredible photographers on the island, and a little Rasta youth, known to my son, Burhan, who recommended her highly. I was just incredibly moved by her passion, her commitment and desire to learn and to serve Rastafari and document as a woman in order to ensure our story is told for generations to come. So Nikki Kane is a photographer, Imagineer, a youth activist in Jamaica. She says, as a young woman in Rastafari, she's still learning and growing. And it's such a great opportunity to be involved in conversations that will help to lead the next generation forward in a more positive and sustainable path. We need grounding, and I'm ready to learn from women who have been representing Rastafari with a purpose, share ideas, be involved in discussions, and be of service in any way I can. She'll touch on challenges, roles within the community and the movement, and ways to facilitate productive and effective change within our present day world as Rastafari and African women. So presenting for us now, her title, being a young creative woman in Rastafari, is Sister Nikki Kane, the baby of the bunch.
The baby of the bunch. Greetings, one and all. It's such a pleasure to be here, to be speaking to all you lovely queens, to all you Rastafari tribe around the world. Greetings. I'd like to acknowledge the Emperor Haile Selassie and Empress Menen, as I look up to them as a young one, you know. I think they have set the example moving forward in our present day as well. And so close to our generation, I think it's only fitting to look forward to them as someone who aligns with Rastafari, and as a woman, as a young woman in Rastafari. I'd like to also acknowledge my ancestors. I'd like to also acknowledge you all here, Queens. It's such an honor again to be speaking with you all. Now, just to give a little background on me, I've always loved to talk to I'm gonna say people because I just think that they're so filled with wisdom. And from ever since I was younger, learning what the principles of Rastafari are now, I felt like I've been aligned with it from I was a tender age. I grew up in a Christian home. My mom is actually, she has locks, but she's not Rastafari. However, her lifestyle is like a Rastafarian, you know? She helps people, she feeds people, she helps people, she always gives clothes to people. You know, she always follow the principles of Rastafari. She eats naturally. She's a vegan. I've always learned to eat naturally from her, you know, so I've looked up to her as a queen in my time, and I've felt that pride from ever since. However, you know, growing up in the Western world, we go to primary school as well. We face things like, okay, cream hair is now a thing, you know, that's the next Eurocentric type, European stereotype that we have to face growing up as young girls. So I remember me just there being a little girl wanting to flaunt my nice long hair. However, it's so hard to comb, and I just want my hair long like all those other girls who cream in it. And then just growing up to realize that that didn't make me feel Black as a woman, that didn't make me feel confident, that didn't make me feel like I want to express my Blackness, you know. So just doing my research, coming to Kingston, having a grandfather as well who's Rastafari. He's a Rastafari priest, and I met him 2 years ago actually. He was in prison for 41 years. He got locked up for something that he didn't do. However, while he was in there, he became the president of a group called Caribbean African Union. I don't remember what the name is, but he was locked up here abroad. And just hearing his story actually inspired me to dive deeper into Rastafari. So I'm gonna say my journey is really young at this point, but I'm so driven to live my life according to the principles of Rastafari. Meeting women like Mama I, meeting people like Mama G, which was very, very inspirational to meet her, you know, to hear her story, to hear what she has been through. She actually reminded me of Nani, you know. So I've always looked to my ancestors to live my life how it should be, or how I feel like I need to be aligned. Now, being a young woman in the Rastafari community out here, and just starting my journey learning about Empress Menen, learning about Haile Selassie, and also just documenting within the reggae community out here, the challenges have been pretty difficult. It has felt pretty lonely, you know? And there's a void, there's a gap between the younger generation and the older generation. But being the type of person I am, I love to speak to elderly people, as I said. It has driven me to learn more about Rastafari and hone that within my space. So while I have the purpose of and the privilege of documenting a movement that actually started to shape the minds of people, you know, it has been challenging to find a space to express, to learn, and to grow as a woman as well. Some of the challenges I might face are, you know, just speaking freely. It has felt like a challenge just to speak freely as a young Rastafari woman. Just not getting the respect that we deserve. But judging from history, judging from women then, we have had a privilege of putting ourselves out there. We have had exposure to different jobs, to better jobs. So I have to give thanks for that as well. But I'm not sure what my time is like. But long and short, as a young woman being amongst Rastafari people right now, I would like more spaces where we can actually learn more, you know. We don't have any information, and just to not see Rastafari women, to be specific, more prevalent. It's like, you know, I'm just reasoning with my other Rastafari sisters as well who align with Rastafari. It's just a challenge for us to learn more information, you know. So my knowledge and my perspective on the Rastafari movement based on my knowledge of the history, I feel like we need to highlight more of these women that have been fighting for us for a while. We need to show these younger ones that, hey, there were women in Rastafari, there are African women who were fighting for things that you have today. So what are you going to do with that information to build the ones that are coming up now? So before my time runs out, I would like to touch on a few things that I've been doing as a young woman. And based on my aspirations, based on things I like, I love to help people. I love to see people smile. I'm very artistic, so I'd like to share my artistic expressions with people. That's the main thing I knew about myself from I started art. And that's one thing I stuck with throughout my journey. And that led me to Rastafari, literally. that's the best explanation I could say. About 4 or 5 years ago, actually from 2014, I met a couple brethren down by downtown, Fleet Street. They have a group called Life Yard. It's an NGO that does community service. They do charity work and all these things. So my love for that, you know, they're all Rastafari men as well. I was like, okay, ready, jump in, work. And then it blossomed into me and an ex-sister of mine who we visited there often, and we saw the girls down there just not having proper examples of, you know, how to talk to each other, how to dress, how to live, you know, what to think, how to think. And it sprung a whole group called Empress Circle, which I'm very proud to say that I got the chance to meet Mama Desta through that. And it was such a lovely experience just to see the girls talking and interacting with someone who's from Africa, you know, from the motherland, from this land that they know nothing of. They're so ignorant to it. And these are the things that I want to expose young girls to, you know, just to know that, okay, Africa is not the place that you learned of in school. It's not the things that you see online, because we're so exposed to all kind of information online right now. You can't really trust what's online. So you have to find it from the elders. You have to have physical conversations. We have to bring up these conversations for them to be aware of their culture and to actually find forward movement happening. Now, Empress Circle, it was a 9-week program and it changed my whole life. Just to see how these girls actually looked up to us by just 9 weeks of mentoring. Some of these girls I knew from they were probably like a younger age, maybe 5 years before. Some of them I was just meeting. And just to hear the conversations that they have as young girls between 10 to 15, trust me, if they had the guidance, they would definitely play a bigger part in our society. So as a young woman, as a young creative woman, being in Rastafari today, I think my role is to be a mentor to these girls, to continue showing that, hey, you're an African woman. If you want to follow Rastafari, you can, but you first need to know that you're African, you're royalty, you're regal. And I think the path of Rastafari, they need to find it themselves. They need to find the truth within that. And we are only here to guide them. So doing things like collaborating with women from Africa as well, I think would be a good way to bring awareness to about Rastafari and Pan-Africanism in Jamaica amongst young women overall. Because some of them, they might have locks, but they're really just doing it for fashion, you know. And for me, it's challenging sometimes to see women who should be of regal stature wearing the locks, even if you don't have locks, you know. Just you need to just bring yourself in a royal way as an African woman and treading in your faith. So I feel like more spaces, more conversations need to happen. I give thanks for this platform as well, because this is my first platform that I'm getting exposure, I'm getting more information from so many influential women. Trust me, it doesn't show how I'm excited now, but I'm really excited and I'm honored to even be here speaking to all of you lovely Rastafari people. And I'm open and willing to hear all of the questions, to learn all of the information I need, and to tread in Rastafari faith. You can find me on Instagram at NICKIIKNE, or you can visit my website at nikkikainvisuals.com or nikkikain.com. I wanted to show some of my photos today, but I think it was more important to share my perspective as a young Rastafari woman within the society and present day. Yeah. Thank you.
Give thanks. Give thanks, Sister Nikki. And I know by throwing you in the water that you could swim. So I had no doubt about it. Really, it was a pleasure and an honor when we visited Fleet Street, myself and my husband, Prince Merid, Jamaica, I guess almost 2 years ago, actually, and saw the commitment and the sacrifice that these young women were making. And they were all much like Nikki in their 20s, concerned about these young girls who were experiencing, when we talk about trauma, we just, you know, we're blessed. We're going through a lot, but we're really blessed to know ourselves. But to imagine dealing with some of the things we're dealing with at the age of 7, 8, 9. It's quite devastating. So the therapy, the sistership, the sisterhood, the sense of sisters keepers that was expressed by Nikki and the Empress Circles was very, very moving. And one of the things that we wanted to do in this reasoning is give opportunities and access for us as women and even our brethren. We get a message from Bongo Wise that says, "Blessed love, Empresses, we as kings are with you all in maintaining the Alpha and Omega balance in life. So fret not thyself." Our brethren are with us, and together, know that we're willing to, what's the word, reveal so we can heal. We need to take this to the next level. So after this reasoning, we have each other's contacts, follow up, strengthen each other. It cannot stop here. This is a movement. It really cannot stop here. We're hearing all the passion and everything that is coming out, whether from seasons ones like Empress Marina, or Dr. Ya Santua, or Keisha again, and even right now to Nikki. So my heart is full, really. My heart is really full. And as a moderator, trying to encapsulate what you've said, it's very emotional. It's really emotional, and we're with you. We vow to be with you, this next generation, to provide whatever resources, knowledge, information, to share it, because this is a baton type race. This is not a one-man race and we reach. It is about passing the baton generation to generation, as Mama Yancy, Ma Shanti, Mama Baby, and these ones did to Sister Ifia, myself, Sister Mitzi, and others, you know. That said, we had a communication from Queen Mother Moses, and she needs a little bit more time to finish her technical issues. She is going to join us. So what we like to do is go on to Mama Notlantla in South Africa. So Priest Doggy, I'm going to turn it forward over to you.
Give thanks, Mama D. Mama Notlantla Mbele. Wow, that's a mouthful for I. Beautiful Empress. She's the queen of a brethren of mine, Rastabulani, who I have a partner here in the West who also is Ras Jabalani. We all three of us know each other, so it's a beautiful thing to finally see the Empress and know who she is. She is the RCC, the Rastafari Continental Council Secretary General. She's a member of the Rastafari United Front Women's League. She is a member of, what's this, Rasta God in South Africa. She's a very active mother, sister, queen, and she has her say, and she would like to add some substance to our conversation this evening, and we look forward to it. Mama Mbile, please, the mic is yours. The floor is yours.
Greetings, Rastafari. Yeah. Greetings, Rastafari.
Greetings, Mama. Go ahead.
Blessed love. Yeah, greetings to everyone and to all the Rastafari people at all corners of the earth. Yes, like it is said, my name is Nonhlanhla Mbele. I am here in South Africa, and it is with great honor and privilege to be sitting among the honorables Rastafari women and men to present such a touchy subject. So far, a lot of critical points have been dissected in this webinar, and I would like to briefly touch also on those issues in a different manner, or in agreement with what the previous speakers have said. I would like to honor all women and men we have lost throughout this critical time. And also, as we speak, this event comes at a time when we have just lost one of our greatest leaders of our lifetime, President John Magufuli in Tanzania. It is with sad note that we had hoped that he's the man of our time to actually save us from all the intricacies that are happening within the world as we speak. Going down and say, I trust I will be able to relay the messages from all the ones that I respect or I represent in this presentation. In my presentation, I will go through the realities on the ground, which we are experiencing since and ever since it's been there and has gotten worse as time goes on, especially in Rastafari. Our people on the ground are living in poverty, and that's the reality on the ground. Our people, and most of them, have no land and resources. In the land of our origin, in the land of our ancestors, there are those who do not have land to plant or to eat. We are employed by the very same system which has colonized us. We are workers of our own land. And we've been taught by the very same enemy. Therefore, we still live in that captured mindset, etc., etc. The irony is that each and every one of us is aware of this ordeal, which is why we are here trying to find a solution. And we give thanks to the initiators of this important project. What could be the solution to this reality? Allow me, my honorables, to state that the solution is just action, because we have spoken so much. We have known about this in a long while, and we have planned so much. We know the solution, but we are not close to the real action. One would then ask, what is the real action? The real action is liberate the women. There's a saying that goes, liberating a woman will liberate the nation. And that can happen within Rastafari itself. Let's leave the duty of protecting our nation to our men, and let us have our men help us to gather the resources to be able to handle our burden. Our burden as women is to fulfill the creed. We have to make sure that our nation does not go hungry. We have to make sure that our children are educated. We have to make sure that we take care of our sick and elders through our institutions. Therefore, our humble proposal to this effect is to create a compulsory fund for everyone who call themselves Rastafari, and establish a body, if there is none, of Rastafari which will manage that fund, so that everyone can contribute to that trust on an agreed amount, an agreed currency, and that trust will be used to fund all developmental projects for the Rastafari nation. Without any fund, there is nowhere we're going. Without any fund, as a nation, nothing will get done as Rastafari collective. And this will help our women to actually fulfill the creed with ease. So we're looking upon ones and one to really think of this creation of a fund. Moving forward, I will look at Rastafari women and the economy. And on that note, I would like to salute all the Rastafari mothers who are striving every day in business to put a plate on their table. And all I can say is that we have great talent, and if nourished, we can turn the world around, and it brought together and bring together and conquer the universe through our mothers. Indeed, we acknowledge that big things are happening in Rastafari in terms of business. The only challenge is that there is less communication and networking, and that's what we need, so that we can be at par with what should be done, and we can be at par with the solution. And the solution is one: we must actually get together through a database and know who's doing what, where, and know, so that we can be able to trade amongst each other, and also the Africans in general. From the businesses that we have, I believe we can buy better groceries and fill up our trays more than we can do at the supermarkets, at the mainstream supermarkets. With the business that we have, I'm sure we can communicate, we can travel, we can build our houses, and we can do anything, that the businesses require, So what more are we looking for outside of our circles as Africans? What is it that we are looking for outside? Because all we need is within us, is within I and I as Rastafari, is within us as Africans. And really all we need is the support, and we need to hold on to each other. We are one nation. We can only depend on each other. We can only depend on one Rastafari and another. So why don't we make this a reality? Having said that, I would like to point out a few critical issues that are really disturbing in our way of life as Rastafari. And those are standing in front of ARNI, and I'm raising this issue on behalf of the Rastafari man and woman and child. I know Ras Sekui Tafari has raised this issue and would like to emphasize it based on the fact that I've been sent to do that. And that's the issue of gender-based violence. It is becoming worse as we go along. We hear it on social media. We hear it from the victims themselves. It is bad. We're really asking the Rastafari people and the Rastafari man in particular to withdraw their unwanted behavior. it is rather not good for any of us, and it is not going to take us anywhere. The second issue that I would like to raise over and over again is the coming together, or rather the union of two people who are to start a new family. We've realized that in Rastafari, there seems to be little marriage than anything else. Rastafari people have come up with a culture that is not known in the culture of Africa. Africans do marry, and from a long time ago, for the sake of procreation, there's always been marriage. And it is taboo to move out of your father's house and cohabitate with the man without the families being brought together. We are not much worried about what the Western has brought to us, but we want to really talk about the issue of Africans because we are raised by parents, and our parents would like to be involved in the continuation of our families. Worse is that whenever something happens in that void marriage, no one is to intervene because it is not recognized. We really need to get married. But worst of all, more than anything, what are we teaching our children? Are we teaching them that it is good to do things disregarding our innate culture? Are we really telling them that our culture is flawed? Imagine what will happen if this is passed on to the next generations and the next generation. This means we have broken our ancestors' number one principle of procreation. Rastafari kings, in order to be called a king, you must have a queen, and the queen must be married. And that is where queens get their confidence, when they're really married. NgesiZulu sithi, umuntu wesifazane uyashadwa. You have to marry the woman. We have a culture to uphold. In this 21st century, we cannot afford to be making such illegitimate children around. Further, there is nothing always like marriage dances that we like. We like to be in those in a long time. Well, during the times that we are actually in this COVID, there's one thing that we miss, the marriage dances. And yet it is so rare in our community of Rastafari. And it's such an honor for women. We love it. It is really a top up. Therefore, this is my contribution to this topic, honoring Rastafari women from all spheres. By profession, I'm an agriculturalist. I'm a farmer. I farm with vegetables and crops. Therefore, food security and food sovereignty is my core. And that I'm definitely sure that as Rastafari people, we will be proud to know that we still have somewhere to eat and somewhere, and we've come up with this and we've been clinging on it. When other people were urbanizing themselves, we stick to the issue of making our own food and producing our own food. Give thanks, Rastafari.
Let's give thanks, Mama Mbele. Very realistic presentation, As a priest myself, I am also an advocate for the union of a man and a woman, having a formal ceremony, binding the love together, in a sacred way, holding each other responsible, for, going forward in unison. So I applaud, that aspect of what you just brought out. Like you said as well, liberating a woman is liberating a nation. One of the problems that I face as a movement and as a nation of people is that our queens, our empresses, our sisters, our mothers have been too long in the kitchen, too long silent, too long, held in dumbing down. It is time for our mothers to speak out as you all are today, making your voices heard on behalf of all of I and I, your sons, your husbands, your daughters, all your kin. And it is heart-rending, to know that we have one of the most marketable brands in the world, and yet Rastafari is still suffering from the sackcloth and ashes mentality. We are still, squabbling and having to fight for the crumbs off the master table when we have the ability, like you said again, the solutions we seek are among us. So we should not be in the position we are, just as Africa should not be in the position it is, being the richest continent. So this, like they say, a million miles starts with one step. And today we have taken that step to start giving a platform to our mothers, our sisters, our wives, and not just giving the platform, but as brethren, we must start to listen to our mothers and sisters, because that thing that is called mother or woman's intuition is a vital aspect of I&I development, because many times the mothers, the sisters, the wives, they see things that I&I, the brethren, don't see, because most of the time we are caught up in other aspects of development, fighting different levels of the struggle. So I give thanks, Mama, for such a presentation. Very realistic. Mama D.
Give thanks, Rastafari. Mama Notlandla, it's always a joy and a pleasure, to hear you speak, to hear you elocute in a way that represents the heart, the soul, the aspirations of the Rastafari woman, because you're talking about the restoration, right? The recognition. And we're not talking about that from outsiders, but from within. And how important our traditional practices, such as the sacrament of marriage, is important. That is our culture. That is our life. And when you say our life, you mean it, because that is the way for procreation. And the marriage is not as Westerners may think of it. It's the process, the families coming together, the negotiation, the dance, the rejoicing. These things were ripped away from us, the children that were taken away during the Ma'afa. And this is why it's so important for us to add to our vocabulary reintegration after repatriation, because we're bringing home blessings, but we're bringing home a lot of baggage. We're bringing home Western ways that we try to sort of black up a little bit, but still have not attained there. And this is no indictment against us, because as Rastafari, to do what we have done in 70 years with no bank, excluded from society, from our families, we have done well, but we can do better. We can do so much more when we think of even the wealth of voices and experience that we have here. And again, I have to go forward to Empress Marina's challenge to us to say what we're going to do. We can't just sit around and talk amongst ourselves anymore. So this effort, again, is very important, as Jadogi opened up with, pulling these things out that we all agree on and codifying them, declaring them to the world that this is where we stand as Rastafari. Now, any individual go and do whatever they want, but we want you to know the principles, practices, and ethics. As you said, this African culture, this is who we are. So we thank you, Mama Notlantla. I'm just overjoyed again. This is really moving for me. Priest Doggy, I'm going to turn it forward to you. We can introduce Queen Mother. We like her so much we had to do it twice, right? Twice an introduction. So I'll give it to you.
Yes, Mama. You know, she's so monumental and so grand that, you know, one introduction couldn't suffice. You know, without ado, we would like to hear from Queen Mother Moses, our esteemed sister, ambassador for Rastafari. You know, she can tell you, she will tell you, you know, who she is and what she does. And I don't think she really need to tell you, because most of us, we know, you understand? So without ado, my sister, Mother Moses. Mama, unmute. We're not hearing you. Mama, unmute. We're not hearing your vocals. Unmute. See,
greetings, greetings.
Yes,
Greetings to the brothers and sisters out there in Radio Land. Yeah, listen, people. Yes, we're ready. We're ready. We've been ready. We're born ready for the restoration, recognition, and inclusion of the Rastafari woman. And so I'm going to share my screen. Is it set up for that? I want to share from the desktop. Is it? Where is my are you seeing it? What are you doing? To share.
Not as yet. Not as yet.
Okay, so why isn't it allowing me to share?
We're seeing you.
Okay.
We are seeing you.
Share, yeah, I hit share. Okay, and
yeah, man, everything is coming up now, Mama. You can go ahead.
Is my presentation up?
Yes, it is. We are seeing it.
You see the presentation now. Give thanks. Yes. Rastafari woman. Okay, let's go to presentation mode from the very beginning. All right. Here we are. Let's start at the very beginning. Yes. Rastafari woman, restoration, recognition, and inclusion. And don't say everyone don't know who is the presenter, Queen Mother Moses. Big shout out to my husband right there in Ghana. You know, see, balance me as Dr. M.O. Stewart, D.R. Cole. Yeah, same so. Hey, who is the first Rastafari woman? Yes. That is the story. Our holy mother, the Empress of Zion, yes, was Zero Menin. And guess what? That November 2nd, 1930, fulfilled restoration, recognition, and inclusion, because that coronation was the restoration of the matriarchy, because that is the African way of life, not the patriarchy that colonizers came and put in ourselves. And the recognition of our goddess head, yes, the Omega, that is one with the Alpha. And of course, the coronation inclusion was of the woman and child, because not only was the woman, you know, remember saying no, an emperor broke tradition for restoration, the woman to a rightful place. Yes, that are the restoration of the woman. And guess what? That woman had a young man in her room at that coronation of November 2nd, 1930. Yes, Ermias Selassie, the father of His Imperial Highness, Ermias Selassie, Haile Selassie, you know, see, who have a twin son, and we know that there are others, so there shall never fall short a king to sit on the throne of David. Yes, and we could go next now to the restoration of the children of the 12 tribes of Israel that came into being through the Ethiopian World Federation Charter 15, and then changed to the organization organization known as the 12 Tribes of Israel. Up until that time, it was only the Rastaman woman, not no Rastafari woman. Until this woman, yes, we call her our mother, Sister Vi, yeah, Valoris Goodman. You hear her name, she's a good man, was a woman, the first to publicly give testimony of Rastafari, the first to publicly read Bible to congregation as Rastafari woman. And so that was restoration and recognition and inclusion, because the youth them also with the founding of the 12 tribes of Israel was also able to give testimony and read Bible. And so, yes, the lock was in place now with the love, unity, charity, and kindness of the first Rasta woman, our Holy Mother, who was here from that time, from the very beginning. Yes, the first born April. You know, Sis, yes, I Mother, yes, all of that, the third one. Yes, so we share our love, unity, and charity, because she come and show us how nobility live, how wisdom and truth is what the mother of creation gives. Yes, the dignity, the righteousness, faithfulness, and pureness of the Rastafari woman, the example that I and I, the daughters of Zion, must follow, as the reverent love of patience and strength in the midst of stress, because we are the backbone of the family, and everything the Rastafari woman of Rastafari does is for the youth them, and that is kindness, see, for make sure the youth them get what them supposed to get. So that are the rule. Anywhere you want, take it anywhere we look of the Rastafari woman. But though this is a movement of one culture and one religion of man and woman, the woman, no, we the sisters not treated equally at all. See, according to March 2011, women are only called to be Rastafari through their husband. That is how it used to be. That we're not supposed to be leaders when we're born leaders. As the chaplain in the prison system, the one before me was by Sue, because in teach that woman can't teach man. The first thing me ask the brethren them when we meet with them is, who's the first one teach about God and about spirituality and for prayer? And them say them mother. Them say, when the woman can't teach and preach anymore. So no, Rastafari woman, so by the nature and in the midst of liberation theology, it is, it can't be so. But that is what was documented by the sister, Obiageli Lake in 1998 with the book of the same name. We know all of the stereotype. Yeah. So society stereotype us. See, yeah, we're black no matter where we're born, the African. We still get stereotype of being illiterate, poor, and we come with places with famine and a violence in our community, all of that. All I do is stereotype. I do some of it is because of and all of it is a result of their institutionalized systemic racism, their Eurocentrism, which judge all of the African at home and abroad, whether them be, blacks or Africans or Latinos or Native American, as long as them non-European, they are stereotype. And this stereotype based on Western values and characteristics of being such as individualism. That is not the African way. The African way is what? It takes the whole village for raise each child. So collectively, I saw everything centered around the child. See, and then we find our mental problem can't get addressed because even their counseling, processes are Eurocentric. Their process, and so we have to come up with our own process to effectively challenge and transform their Eurocentric psychology. See, because we know what it is based on the white middle class value system. See, and it is due to the dereliction and disregard for the human being. But we know, we're going to tell you about there's always, God never left us without, see, some kind of intervention for success and for failure. It's not an action. nation. I saw Emperor Haile Selassie, I said the father of this movement. You know, see, so we know that there is at least one successful African-centered model. It is in the historically Black College University, Clark Atlanta University School of Social Work, and it is an Afrocentric curriculum based on humanistic principle of inclusion, you know, see, and self-help, which is what the African is known for. You know, see, we love everybody and nobody and don't love ourselves. Time we start with the self-help and knowing that it all start from tapping within, you know, see, to that healing force that is within I and I. We have to heal that inner child. Yes, mama, sister, Keisha, you tell them at the same way it goes is. We know what the stereotypes of Europe and America in these, you know, collectibles that them say is American. No, that is not who we are. You know, see, we are not less intelligent than whites. There are stereotypes that continue to say we're worthless, and yet still everything that has been created throughout the world, it wouldn't have been created if it wasn't for the Africans. Look at what thing the African that them bring abroad to D6 region, or what thing them create. Even if them can't come up with a light bulb, them can't keep the light on. Because the African, with all the color, the light of the world, yes, and all the things that I and I create while we're on this side. So guess what? The strongest of the strongest they survive, but it never stops us from being African. Even though all in the media, these stereotypes are still being propagated. You know, the roles of the maid, you know, and the gangsters and the mummies. But we know that the responsibility of the Rastafari woman is to love the Lord our God with all our heart and with all our soul, because it's a mother, father, God, and Alpha and Omega. And we know, so we must do unto others, and we must want them to do unto I and our family, because we must be the change we want to see in our own self first of all, then our family and community, because we are the virtuous woman of Proverbs 31:10-31. Yes, you know that our price far above rubies. When they talk about worthless, then think them can buy we. That's see, never enslave. We are Ethiopians and we hold on to that freedom. And we know say the man is, guess what, defined by the woman. You know, he's known in the gates because of his virtuous woman. He better recognize and know the concerns of the Rastafari woman are many. We are not polluted. There can be no remission of sin without the shedding of blood. That is what the woman does. And when we take our 7 days off because of our sacredness, it's for the sin of the brethren them and the sister in them and the others and the institutionalized racism that I and I have to survive. You overs as the Rastafari woman. You know, see, I will not take no subordination in this theology of liberation. You know, but many Rasta women don't see themselves as subordinate. I do many are buying into that subordination. We hear, you know, what ones that's supposed to be leader in a South Africa talk about him decide when he might go marry or how much he might go marry after done how much children done born. What about those children? So let me look what are the concerns of the Rasta woman is this polygamy thing. Because guess what? The Rastafari faith movement is an African faith movement. So I don't know when we are talking about African if we are going to talk about something different for Rastafari. Our God and King is African and he put in place what we must do. But we know say there's a choice of polygamy, which is whether man or woman, multiple, you know, see partners. Then out of that polygamy you have polygyny, whereas many wives or whatever. And then you also have polyandry, which is a woman having more than one husband, and those things are legal and in Africa. You understand? So if you have a talk about different forms of African way of living, know that you have to look at all of them. And when we look at all of them, we look at it in the context of the well-being of the child. You understand? When the husband, they are the different houses, who they are take care of the children, and they are the house where need man and woman in it for the welfare of the child. Yeah? When them talk about polyandry and that the woman have more than one husband, you think so it go? It's not telling about practices such as the Wohombi that is in the Lele people of Congo, where the woman, yes, I'm not talking about she have more than one husband, but she become the wife of the village. And guess what? She's abused. Any man can come in and say a film turn while I'm away upon him young, baby girl, for come off here, film come the flower. You know, see it. Look at it always in the context of the children. When those children are born of the wife of the village, how are they looked upon? You know, see it. And the man them of the village provide the dowry, etc. But them not have no father who will take the whole village. It shouldn't be literal because the wife of the village can't tell certain ones no. You know, see it. So we can go with other example of man because them rich. Like in Kenya, of the Western polygamy, everybody know about the more a cuckoo. He married over 130 times and divorced over 80 times. But you hear what I'm saying? I dressed well and I knew how to charm women with sweet talk. You know, no woman could decline my advances. You hear? No woman could decline. You know, give her an opportunity to decline. If you want her, I forget her. You know, see it. And guess what? Magnet, you couldn't tell him no. And whenever I'm done with you, him just say, you know, so him divorce you just because him feel like it, and because him have money. But in most of these polygamous marriages have make multiple wives, it's subsistence farming. So it's poverty, you know, see. So you have people like the man where them call Danger, and you have in Angola, Sabula, who is known as Pai Grande, Big Dad, who left from us. Then you have now like in a Northwest Cameroon, who made the second, the 11th king of the Bafon Kingdom. But him know him have over 100 wives and 500 children. But he had inherited 72 of his wives from his father. So you look at certain practices and you look at African and you wonder what Rastafari come and put in place for I and I, because he had all those choices. You know, see, here one African woman say, she said, personally, I would never be married to a man who has another wife, and let alone 100 more. You understand? Well, the Rastafari woman, them get nervous when them hear man talk about, oh, this is what them are going to look at that new faculty of overstanding. You know, see, because the research has proven that polygamy is linked to poverty. You know, see, and when you look at mental health, it tells you that you know, see, there are mental health issues in polygamous relationship and marriages and the children. And they looked at certain things because I had to look at the African study. And I look at one from South Africa, which challenged the hegemony of Eurocentric psychology. You understand? And what they found was that there was more mental health problems, social problems, and lower academic achievement for children and adolescents from polygamous rather than monogamous family. Jehovah's is a reason that our God and King created what? The fidelity order. You know, see, Emperor Haile Selassie created fidelity order. He created an order of fidelity award to be given to all Ethiopians. Wow, born at home and abroad, let me add, who have been faithful to their wives for 25 years. At the top of the list of the recipients scheduled to receive the award was this majestic name, Emperor Haile Selassie, Jehovah's. That I went choose for the Rastafari real life. No one can come tell us anything different unless who gives them authority to change Rastafari order of fidelity. Look what I do. A real and touching photo of His Majesty, you know, giving a flower to his wife, Empress Menin. You know, see, it was taken in the garden. Then went for them garden walk in the Imperial Palace in 1945. Exemplary love, you know, see, which inspired Haile Selassie to create the order of fidelity to be given. And that are the Rastafari way of life. And we have other African that we can call on successfully, that sure say, you know, and him strive like him name with him one wife and kids. Him is a billionaire. You understand? Family model when them work together as family for the youths, you overs. Him is the guardian of African family life. Yeah. See, and guess what? A model of success to support rural entrepreneur, him and his wife, establish a war on over $100 million. You know, see, for those in the poor, come overcome poverty. So, and him tell we say, just having the vision is not enough. Hard work is needed. That's why I love the BMW them. The black man working, because that is the black man winning. You know, see, the man when knows his wife is there beside him, you know, when she need to be as in balance and behind him for push him as the leader that he is. Yes, and sometimes if he step out in front of him, you know, see, for protect him from where she no one can see with fear third eye, which blinded by film loss, because I lost many of them are look for when many women when them not take care of none of them, you know, see, and we have, you know, airline industry, because we have to move. Yes. An Ethiopian airline founded in December 1945. Ethiopia's flag carrier, the first airline in Africa, and it fulfilled the swift beast prophesied to fulfill to carry the Christ, the anointed Savior of November 2nd, 1930, through the clouds in the sky to the people on April 21, 1966, to be called by His Imperial Majesty's new name, Rastafari. You talk about models of success. African woman, yes, Sister Kelly Petunia, Mzimila, after years of working in the aviation field, September 2015, this African businesswoman made her story a part of history as the first black woman to launch her own airline. And you talk about airline, the airline industry says if you have blacks, you couldn't get hired. But my credential get me the interview. And then at the bun, I got hired as the first person with locks. And which airline did it? Delta. Delta is Greek for change to the better, we say. And where time I left them, me get them highest award. Chairman Club, we put my name on ship 953, that are the plane. So guess what them start? A club name, Pinnacle Club. And guess who I one of the first one for qualify? Of course, because Pinnacle our thing. Anything you have, you know, see it, negative. I'm the first one too for make them $1 million in a 1 year. So them start a club name, the Millionaire Club with my name made in the list. You know, see, we are models of success. You want to talk about other success? Dr. Desta, Africa Unite Africa, talk about success. BBC, TV in South Africa, think Empress of Zion and the Ras Cup being put on in South Africa is so important that them come to interview I and I. Where you want to go? Ralak, Rastafari, Ancient Living Arts and Culture, models of success. Here we in the Ivory Coast, Mirja, the school, you know, the art repatriation model. You are models of success with their Botswana, the University of Botswana, first university on the continent, you know, to launch and to hold the first book written, published, everything by Rastafari women, by Afro-Rastafari women as daughters of Zion. The ancestors' worship and recognition and inclusion here at where is this? Down there in Brooklyn, Coney Island, there with them from 1989 when them yes, also give me 6 months to live from ovarian cancer. God said no. So we're ready. You know, see, Addy, all of it. We know, say, feel the needs of others more than yourself. And that is the conclusion. We are the Rastafari woman, ready, fit, stand together in a unity and peace, because war is not the answer. Make we unite and move forward. For all these words, I, Queen Mother Moses, give thanks. Yes, I. Hit that.
Yes, I'm lost for words. I mean, she has said it all, so I don't think I need to recap here. You know, there are many practices that exist in the world today, you know, that I and I don't partake in. You know, as we are charting through the quagmire of hurdles and issues, trying to sort out where we are, identifying where we came from and how we're going to get where we want to go. These are topics that we will have to discuss going forward. This is the start of the conversation. This is not the sum total. So as we continue the conversation, we will unpack a lot of these issues going forward, so we can leave, as Mama Moses said, leave, a clear pathway for the future generation, setting the trend, for the princesses and the princes to know their rightful part in earth, knowing that, the empress and the emperor, they are our divine examples. The Honorable Prophet Marcus Garvey is the forerunner who set the pace within, our economic and governmental development. So we just need to continue to reason, to ground with one another, grounding with my brothers and sisters, so we can be on one page as we step, deep into this 21st century, with the tools that we need to overcome the hurdles. So I give thanks for all, the presentations that have been done today, and we are now open to Q&A. Ones can submit their questions and they will be answered as best as possible. Mama D, over to you. Thank you.
Give thanks. Yes, Queen Mother. It's we were enjoying it that so much that we too did not pay attention to the time. Your edutainment is something that it uplifts, it challenges, it provokes. But it's an important voice in this space, this safe space where I and I can reason freely as we go through the movement within this 21st century, especially being here on the continent, So we do have some comments that came in that we need to acknowledge. Let's see here. I think one came in from Ras Frankai. I actually said, as usual, Empress Marina, concise and direct. Give thanks, Empress. Commending the Ghana Rastafari Council, addressing the principles highlighted. All hail Rastafari Continental Council and GRC. Repatriation is a must. Check reparation for settlement in Africa, rsap.org. And also he's hailing up Mama Notlantla and Rastoto and all of the South African Rastafari. One of the things that was really important to hear Mama Notlantla is because the South African community or Rastafari nation is the largest thus far on the continent. Let's see, I'm looking for any questions here. Do we have any questions? These are mostly comments. It'd be good to get a question. Latoya Bridgewater, can one of our hosts acknowledge, please, Sister Latoya, and unmute her if needed?
Yes, peace, love, and blessings, everybody. I hope that you can hear.
Yes, we're hearing you.
So I had a question, but I also wanted to just touch on a little bit of what Empress Marina touched based on, as far as adverse childhood experiences, abuse, neglect, and household dysfunctions being the cause of some of the challenges within the Rastafari community. I think that it's very important for us to take into account that the initial adverse childhood study that was done in '98, that 89% of the participants in that study were white middle-class males. And racial trauma was never considered in the ACE study. And the DSM, who determines and defines trauma, does not look or recognize racial trauma, which is a lot of what we're talking about here. Therefore there's no framework even within Black psychology. You know, those of us who've been trained as social workers, counselors, psychologists, we have no particular framework to address, you know, the trauma that we have experienced as African people. You know, so within the institutions that we're getting our qualifications and degrees from, we have not been taught, you know, any healing modalities that's particular to the things that we've experienced. And I think like even within that, then as Rastafari people, there's been no particular framework that's been created to address specifically the languages, specifically the issues or challenges that we're facing. So I guess a part of my question is, because I'm so grateful, again, just like others have expressed, that there is a safe space for us to come and openly speak about the challenges that we're having, those that are behind us, ones that we're currently engaged in, and those that are before us. My question is there going to be like some type of system that we can collectively use to address some of the challenges that we are seeing? So it's something that can be passed through houses and mansions, because there are plenty of us who are qualified in order to create something. Absolutely. But I think this is a big step forward in having that done.
Yes, I give thanks. You know, I'll in the first place, this is what we call a facilitation. Our committee is just that. We're not an organization. We're not the ones that is going to try to address these issues. What we're trying to do is give platform and a safe space to reason with these very sensitive and deep issues in a manner where we can learn and grow from it and lead to, as Jadogi alluded to before, the codification or a declaration, manifesto, call it what you will, that states who we are. So these are the principles that we aspire to. And they are foundation principles. Now, in saying all of that, these things have no, they need mechanisms to implement them. So if we say that we are people of principle and family comes first, and this is what Rastafari stands for, well, then how do we enact that? How do we perpetuate that? How do we heal so we can be that? This is where we look to existing organizations such as Empress of Zion, IDOR, Dark Foundation. There are so many. We don't need to keep reinventing the wheel. Not to mention we have mansions. So it is our hope that we'll be able to inspire these mansions, organizations, or individuals such as advocates like Empress Marina, who has been, again, on the forefront, pushing the envelope to say, look, these things need to be dealt with. So this is why these platforms are available. We've got Akona Healing Arts and so forth. So it would be through these individuals who specialize, just like yourself, in these areas, that would be the ones to address it, codify it, put these principles in place, and so forth. So I think that's my response, Jadogi, and even Empress Marina, I think she should chime in as well.
Well, I would say that the sisters that are best equipped to deal with this situation can also come together and form a collective, that, can serve in that capacity. I would also like to see organizations like the Women's Freedom Liberation League become more active and involved in their, like their name says, the Women's Liberation League. Be more, active in liberating the woman from the bondages of society and the trappings of religion that has held them back, So yes, Mamadi, I totally agree with you. We are here to facilitate, to create this space where one can identify the entities that are best equipped to deal with these problems. Empress Marina, do you have something to add to it?
Empress Marina is still with us? Not sure if we lost her. Hopefully she can rejoin, because again, as I said, you know, she was the one that sort of pushed us to this point. And one thing that I've really respected through the process is she's continuously said, I don't know certain aspects of this. So it is going to take those who have the knowledge to come together to make this, to implement, because at the end of the day, it is about protecting and preserving the dignity and integrity of the Rastafari culture. Let's see. So we have CRO flagship. All right, Sister Keisha Bowers is forward. Remember, she made the first presentation. So if there's any question, she has rejoined us. Let's see here. Mike Pam, how do we deal with this prevalent practice of having one king man, having a lot of women and plenty of children? It's giving Rastafari a very bad image. Rastafari blessings. This is Ras Mike Penn from Nigeria. Is Ras Mike, do you want that question aimed at anyone in particular? Or do any of our panelists want to take that?
We need to codify the liberty. That's one solution I would suggest.
Yeah. Rastafari. Bless and love, Steve.
Rastafari, Ras Mike.
Amen. Blessings. Greetings to all. You know, that question, you know, I am talking from experience here in Nigeria. I get to be asked that question a lot, you know, so at times you find it difficult to give answers that are really, really sound, because when you look around after answering some of these questions and you still look around, you still see a whole lot of this practice out there. You know, it's not sound. So there's no particular person, but I would like any of the panelists to take it. It is really, really important. And I have some other questions after that, but this is one thing that has been bothering us out there. Let's say Rastafari.
Rastafari, give thanks. Nadine? We have about 12 minutes to go, so let's definitely please try to make questions.
Sister Dr. Desta, since everyone is a topic where everyone afraid for touch, you overs. So as we talk about codify, based on what are we going to codify the Rastafari way of life for family structure? Does His Majesty order of fidelity play any role in how we move forward? And of course, since ones are coming into the faith every day, if a family comes in as a polygamous family, clearly that family stays intact. But once one is in the Rastafari family and the way of life moving forward is not to be adding additional wives. And, you know, publicly, while one is wondering where is the pregnant one and what is happening with the children in that other household and those kind of things, it don't look good, as Brother Mike Palmer, you know, has alluded to. All over Africa, ones are looking at I. And if we say His Majesty is the example and Rastafari is the way of life, then it's whatever His Majesty way of life is that the Rastafari family should be looking at. And he get calls and all kinds of things from all over from the sisters them real concerned, because them say no mother nor grandmother not stepping up to say them going to agree for them daughter or granddaughter be no first, for no second, third or fourth or sixth wife, or no girlfriend, or no concubine, when you come in front of the community and make a vow. You understand? Because marriage is about uniting families. It's not about individuals. That's the African way. Give thanks for all those words. Sorry for stepping on any toes.
Give thanks to you, Mother. There's a question here from Monifa Miller. Greetings, I people. Is there a universal office of conduct where one can report and mediate misconduct of houses, mansions due to violation or Rastafari, I think it's off Rastafari ordinances. If not, any suggestions on how it could be incorporated? So Jadogi, I think this kind of goes forward to our mandate. So you want to address this? And then we have another question.
Sorry, mommy, I was distracted.
Yes, so the question is there a universal office of conduct where one can report and get mediation regarding misconduct within the houses or mansions due to violations of Rastafari ordinances? If not, can any suggestions be made as to how that can be incorporated?
Well, most houses normally have a council of elders, you know, an administrative body, some form of, you know, leadership structure. And, you know, they should have such conflict resolutions systems in place. You know, as we see, most mansions right now are kind of restructuring themselves. So hopefully that will be in the forefront of the restructuring. If not, we need to create them because this is a new faculty of overstanding. So, you know, in looking at things that don't work, we get rid of them. And in trying to deal with aspects of our development going forward, we need to put in place things that we need. So if it's not there, we need to create it. You know, we have that ability. That's where the dialogue comes in again, and educating our constituents, you know, our members of our different groups, our communities, you know, so ones can be informed on issues and not just react to issues.
Give thanks, Shadogi. We have a question from Galaxy S8. Her hand's been raised. Go ahead, sis.
Greetings, Rastafari. It's a pleasure to be a part of this. I'm Sister Asha calling from New York, originally from Trinidad. I just want to touch base on the brother that brought up the question about Rastafarian men having more than one woman, and on the comment that the sister made just now. Give thanks for that. That's one of the issues that has been a concern of mine, knowing many Rastafari women over the years. And as we know, as women who are the mothers, I've seen a lot through many different houses. I've traveled a lot, and I see this affecting the mental health of our Rastafarian women. And I think this is, I think this is one thing that is holding us back as a community. I've seen many sisters, because of the stress, you know, die of cancer, disease, you know. Now, we know the Muslim faith, there is the whole issue of having more than one wife. The key thing, which I think is, men have to be able to take care, women as well, but when a man chooses to have more than one relationship, to be able to take care of that family. So what I see happening is, one of the things that I think that is holding back Rastafari, if we have to uplift the woman, the strength of the woman, because the woman is the one who are, you know, rearing the children and passing on the works. This is why a lot of our young people are not holding on to the works of Rastafari. I just want to say I'm glad to be a part of this. Sorry I joined late. And I would like if you can send me some more information on if there's a website or anything of that I can be a part of. Give thanks for these few words. Rastafari.
Give thanks, sister.
Yes, I give thanks.
Rastafari.
I see Warrior here has his hand up.
Yes.
Yes, I Rastafari, greetings to each and everyone. My question is basically, from whom are the Rastafari woman seeking restoration, recognition, and inclusion?
Yeah, I would like to say that we are not seeking it, we are establishing it, because it first starts within oneself.
Definitely.
You know, the Most High put in our very DNA, in our spirit, in our very breath, the glory of being empress, of being royal, of being the highest of high. However, based on Eurocentric values, based on trauma, based on all the things that have been discussed and reasoned on today, we have also been perpetrators in denying ourselves, not recognizing ourselves. not including, because again, these words are not external, they're internal. Inclusion, right? Including ourselves within our sisterhood, even including ourselves by looking at ourselves to care for ourselves. So that is my answer. I don't know if any of our other panelists would really like to give you the opportunity. Mama Notlantla, Empress Keisha, Nikki, Queen Ifia. Just unmute and share, please.
Oh, let me. This is Sister Keisha, and I'm so glad I was able to kind of come back in. Different rap, but I'm here. So, you know, I have a lot of perspectives about how we allow trauma in our lives, and I have perspectives on like taking responsibility for what we allow, and that's why I spoke and opened my section in today's dialogue with recognizing your own trauma. Because what we have what I call make nice antennas. I teach my clients about these make nice antennas, right? If we grew up in a home where there was a father who was not emotionally available, he beat on the mother, he had a lot of women. When you grow up as a woman, because you want to resolve whatever pain came from that experience, you're going to naturally go to what's familiar, not what you consciously, because many of us say, I will never marry a man like my father. I will never. But what do you think really happens? When you become an adult, you have to make nice with the situation. So you want to repair the initial trauma. So you have to match yourself with something that is parallel or mimics that initial trauma. And so we have to be honest with our inner child pain. Are we entering this relationship? There's a dynamic called codependency. Do we have a need to be needed? Do we connect with other? Do we trauma bond? Do we connect with other people who are in pain and try to fix and repair them because it makes us feel better? So I don't want to talk about this stuff. Like when I come into these platforms, I like to go hardcore because some of the cultural rhetoric, it still suppresses everything that's really happening. We need everything to emerge to the top, and we need to be honest with ourselves.
Reveal to heal. Jadogi?
Yeah, give thanks.
I really want to mention that. I just want to say the Reveal to Heal was a slogan that my father, who was a Rasta man, Aya Bowers, he was on the radio in New York, WLIB, and that was his tagline for his show. You have to reveal it to heal it, Aya Bowers. So I got to give him his little credit in his absence.
Yes, I give thanks, Sister Keisha.
Jadogi, you would like to say something?
Go ahead, my brother.
Yes, I want to address Ras Mike from Nigeria, and also the sister who spoke a while ago. I think she's from New York. And I want to say that we put a lot of accusation in relation to the African man in the West. And we fail to realize that the African man, after 1865 in North America, and after 1834 in the Caribbean, that they were ill-prepared. Our ancestors, our great-grandparents were ill-prepared for this whole event of even so-called emancipation. Because I wouldn't say it's even real emancipation, it's so-called emancipation. And we were so ill-prepared because on the plantation, we were the children, people were making the children. When the slave trade was abolished, they imposed on us as African men on the plantation that we go about making children from one plantation to the next plantation. So brothers and sisters and so on, we didn't know when you leave one plantation in a place like Atlanta and they send it to another plantation in Miami, you didn't know if your children who you left at different points will even come together and not knowing who they are. So when we put the pressure to say that African men and more so Rastafari men, are very much promiscuous without taking responsibility, it is because they were ill-prepared. And we have to set up institutions to prepare them. Because whether we choose polygamy or we choose to be with one wife or woman choose to be with one husband, as the case might be, the reality of it is the social organization that we have to create as Rastafari people, as a Rastafari nation. We have to deal with that situation. It's not to say that, oh, because Your Majesty say one wife, that other parts of African traditions, we uphold other aspects of African tradition. There's no right or wrong. Because if you look into the same so-called Bible that people read, you will see in those Bibles, there were people with many wives. But how it is dealt with, we have to deal with respect. So many times the wife, the first wife, she chose the other wife. And the responsibility of a man, you choosing a man who's going to go about and not taking care of his children, is something that the community has to come to deal with. We have to deal with that as a community, as a nation of people. This is one of the realities that we have to deal with. Give thanks.
Yes, Brother Sekou. Well, part of what Brother Sekou just addressed, I was about to speak on, which is the seasoning farms that we were sent to, the seasoning plantations, where we were mandingo breeders, where those farms specialize in creating replenishment of slaves for the plantation. See, those ways, we have never got any treatment for the trauma that we have been through, for the circumstances that we were put under. Other nations have gotten all kinds of health assistance in those areas. The people from the Holocaust and the different, traumas that the other nations have borne. But I and I, the African, we have been told to pull ourselves up by our bootstraps, and we have been doing that. So part of that lies in those long ago days, but they are still following up I and I today. On the next level now, the question the brethren pose as who the Empress is seeking, restoration, recognition, and inclusion from. That kind of tells us a lot where I and I brethren minds are as well. We have to realize that we are in the principle of Rastafari is perfect. I and I, imperfect beings, in trying to live it, have come up short many times. So I and I, leadership of the different groups and mansions that have founded Rastafari, have also helped in continuing those negative ways. So in seeking their restitution and their recognition, they're also seeking it from I and I, the brethren who have been the frontline speakers and leaders. See, and that is fact, so we cannot take ourselves out of the situation as well. You understand? We need to look at the thing realistically, see, and change those principles that have held back I and I tradition. Now, polygamy is there's a way in which, what you'd call original polygamy was practiced. Now, many of what we're talking about is not polygamy. It's like what Mother Moses says, lust. We just jump from bed to bed and we seek, all kinds of women, and we are poor people, unable to feed the ones that we have at home, much less the ones around the way and around the way and around the way. See, so like Brother Sekou said, it is not so much, it's how we do things. You understand? There are principles that govern certain levity and certain practices. See, and if done in the original ancient order, it might be tolerable, might be a way that people can endure or deal with. But the way we are doing it, having children all over the place, not able to parent them, not just provide for them, because some of us think that by providing financial assistance, that is enough. No, by parenting these children, being there in their time of need for role models and so forth, see, that is fulfilling your task. If you are unable to do that, if you cannot parent one household, how are you going to parent 5? But if you are capable of such, then, more power. Give thanks.
Give thanks. We have one question from Sister Sharon, and then Sister Kathy Howell is going to follow. So Sister Sharon, you have the floor.
Greetings, everyone. I'm so grateful to hear this wonderful discussion. Well, one of the points that I didn't hear enough of, maybe I missed it because I joined late, is the spiritual component within the being. So we talk about the balance between the male and the female, and this is correct. But we also miss the balance between the physical and the spiritual. The polarities have to have the balance, so that because we live in a physical world, we also are spiritual beings operating in the spiritual world. And when we speak of the highest on high, if you can even imagine what high looks like beyond the physical realm, beyond the moon and the stars, beyond our capacity for man's spaceship to reach. That is the highest on high. And that's where the spiritual energy comes from and rains down on man and the material world that we live in. And when we neglect that part of the being, the healing cannot happen. The healing, it would then be transference of trauma. So we take the trauma because we have the racially related aspect of trauma, but we also have the domestic violence of trauma. And then we have that transference of trauma that becomes that we internalize and end up hurting ourselves because we think that, you know, if we can just achieve more, acquire more, have more of whatever it is, but we're not really allowing the self to go within and connect to that divine space and connect it to the highest on high. Because His Majesty, His Imperial Majesty speak of spirituality as a part of our livity. And so I think that is a part of the balance that needs to be included so that we can heal first the self, because the chain is as strong as its weakest link. What we bring to the circle is our baggage, because we are looking for solutions. And this is good, the opportunity to share solutions. And the one solution that is often overlooked is spirituality, because everyone has a different meaning of what that looks like. But when we remove everything else, all the matter, the elements of matter, one is left. When we go within, we transfer from a spiritual, from a physical to a non-physical entity. That is the entity that needs to be honored and recognized as well. Give thanks.
Give thanks, Sister Sharon. And I don't know if you heard Queen Ifia's presentation, but speaking of the Nyabingi and the drums, because that is what it is symbolic of. And so her presentation, I don't know if Queen Ifia is still with us and can respond to it, but it certainly is the essence. It is our breath. It is everything. So I'm glad that you have reinforced that as far as the trauma. Priest Dougie as a priest while we're waiting for hopefully Queen Ifia.
Yes, that's so true, because you know, that was my experience with the drum sound.
Yes, sir. Yes, Queen Ifia. Did you hear the question?
I heard some of the perspective that was shared by her, but it sounded like it was based around the balancing of the spiritual and the material.
Yes. Yes, indeed. But your presentation earlier, because of the Nyabingi, because I've always seen it as an essential part of the spiritual component. So if you can maybe connect the dots for us.
Yeah, it's for me, it's personal, but I guess each of us go through our heretical route, probably going to the same destination, and our experience might be different. I know what I feel when I communicate with the drum, because I know that is where what I use as African people to send the signal on various levels in communicating with the others, especially during the time when we were separated by the colonial system physically. So the drum is always that heretical means of balancing when we rock to the Nyabingi drums or when we rock to the African drums, and the wave, the synchronicity of the energy that it brings you within, especially myself, I can give an account to it. It takes me into the concept of the heavenly energies. It relieves me from my stressors. I go out there in the system and all the discrimination and victimization. When I goes into the elements of the Nyabingi drum and for what it stands for and what it represents, it really brings me a sense of wholesomeness, a sense of peace, and a sense of relief from all the stressor that I experience out there. And I know also that today it is being used as a tool to share the energy of psychology in different spaces. The drum and dancing to the rhythm of the drum is a way of connecting and spiritualness, and it is done in a collective way through the Nyabingi, and I'm sure through the Baba Shanti and the 12 tribe of Israel and in personal spaces, but it's a part of the infinite dynamism of African spiritual connectivity.
Allow me, excellently put. Through the chair, allow me to add that I and I, as Rastafari, are spiritual beings having a human experience, and the drums are what connects I and I. We hear a message that is totally, that's where that spirituality comes in, because it's the one-on-one communication, not only with the Holy Spirit of the Creator, the Mother, Father, Godhead, but also the ancestors. And so my stories, I came into the movement through Nyabingi, and it is the drums. And as the first generation, to make it through the belly of the beast to America, where we were doing the bingi in Central Park, while the drum was going, we on the height. Once the brethren them start reasoning, you wonder, where is the woman in this? You understand? Isn't Nyabingi a queen? You over. So we reach now to this 21st century that it's time now that I and I really put the balance in place, rebalance our spirituality, because I don't think the Rastafari sisters ever moved away from that spirituality. Is what has been their guiding force. I joined 12 tribes of Israel because when I went there, the theme songs were with the drums. That time, you have no other kind of electronic instrument. So that connection with the drums is like...
I'm going to ask you to stick up in no Queen Mother, because we have Sister Kathy that's on hold, and I know we're going to come forward to you because we have a couple more questions. So if we can please just give Sister Kathy Howell and then Ras Frankai. Okay? So don't go nowhere, Queen Mother. Sister Kathy Howell, welcome.
Greetings, everyone.
Greetings.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, I love it. We're hearing you.
Okay, I'm really delighted to be on this program today. I'm an elder and most often like to stay behind the curtains or to do what I'm doing behind the curtains. But today I knew that I had to at least participate on this program on behalf of my father, Dr. Leonard Percival Howell. And there's so many things that's been said today, and just 3 topics, and I don't want to be long, I want to speak on. And number 1 is respect, number 2 is love, and the next 3rd one is empowerment. Queen Mother, she is a blessing. Sister, I bless you and bless you up. First I just want to speak about respect. I am a Rasta sister that was born in Pinnacle, the first Rasta village in Jamaica. And I know that writing my book, I probably will not be able to finish it up until now, but the process goes on. But respect for me means a lot. Respect for me is the highest form of love. And respect for me is, first, if I don't respect myself, to give myself the highest form of love, how on earth Can I respect my mother, my father, my husband, my sister, my brother, or even my family? You know, I mean, I look around the Rasta community, and now I'm in Jamaica, and even when I move around as an elder, you know, the respect, being a female, the respect that I don't even, well, as I said, you know, first you have to respect yourself. So when I don't see the respect, guess what I tell myself? Them don't respect themselves. He doesn't respect himself. So if he doesn't respect himself, then why does he have to respect me? And I see this among my brothers and sisters in the Rasta movement. And the next thing that I want to say is this, you know, when you respect, you have a certain amount of loyalty, you have a certain amount of honesty, and you have a certain amount of love and trust for self. All of that goes hand in hand. And until we learn to respect each other, we're really not going to move forward. Because right now, when I looked and see even the world around me and to see what is going on, and within the culture itself of the Rasta culture, I see no respect. And therefore, I have to keep asking myself, is this really these people that call themselves dreadlock Rasta are really Rasta? Or maybe some of them might just be rascals? Or are they hiding something under the locks that is telling us that they're Rasta, but they're not living the liberty? They're not really being true to themselves? You know, those are the things that concerns me. And as an elder, I just really fringe all the time when I see this disrespect among even our own sisters don't even respect each other. I went to some place the other day and heard another sister with her rumors, another thing, women on their mouth, rumoring, spreading rumor about another sister that is so degrading that when I looked at her, I say to myself, were you there? She says no. But how could you be spreading rumor against your own sister when you wasn't there and it's just hearsay? You know, that is disrespectful. I'm not saying that Rasta sister is supposed to be, you know, perfect, infallible, but no. I mean, this is just human nature. And I really have a big, you know, problem with that. And then again, you know, I have to say to myself, well, Catherine, you know, it is what it is. It's a time that we're living in. But okay, let me just move on to even the word love. Love. We had the first Rasta village in Jamaica, which was called Pinnacle. My father was a philanthropist, and he made it happens for a lot of people who born out of slavery, didn't have home. Some of them were coming from downtown Kingston, from off the plantation. Some of them were coming from deplorable living condition. And so they had a place that they could live and live in oneness, grow their own food. One day, somebody else have a field that want to have a help. About 20 or 30 of them go and help, and another Tuesday, another one has a farm, they go and help. And this is that unity that I was brought up with, a unity among women, a unity among men. And I am looking at this and I really says, wow, you know, I mean, even though I know that love is a feeling, it's either you have it or you really don't. You can't force people to love. You know, you can't force anyone to love you, but it's an expression. It's an expression that we have as Rasta, because our motto is one love. And, you know, when we get to the color boundaries and the yellow skin or the white skin or the pink skin, it's a one love. Because when you look around the whole world today, you know, Rasta is global, and it's coming from the yellow man, the pink man, the brown man, you know, the darker man, And all these different people are there, but they have the same ideology that we have. And as the emperor talks about, he talks about there is one race, and it is the human race. And, I just wanted to move on, with that, and to really talk about even empowerment. So when I even looked at empowerment today, I say to myself, the struggle of the future goes on. And it seems that we have been miseducated in our race. And because of that, we seem to be our greatest enemy. And when you look even among our people, it seems like we are like crabs in a barrel. None wants to allow the other one to climb out. They just keep pulling each other down back into the barrel. And you really want to say to myself, well, what is it all about? Is it about jealousy, rivalry? Is it about ego? Or is it about hate for each other? My heart bleeds today, and my heart bulges. And as a Rasta elder, when I look around and see what most of these people are calling themselves Rasta, it grieves me to my guts. And on empowerment, I'm just saying that we as women, we have to fight for what we believe in. We have to fight to make the future a better place for the next generation. Because when you see what is going on right now in the world around you, and even the COVID virus and all of this that is going on, you can't allow yourself to accept the wrong kind of philosophy and to follow deception and propaganda and to get yourself involved with this vaccine and all these other things and forget about taking care of your immune system. We are Rasta. And we also must realize that we're living on earth and that the things that we practice, we need to think about the teaching of His Majesty. We are living in a very, very temporary, everything right now that is going on, is temporary on this earth, and it's all materialistic. And this age of racial, national selfishness, which is called discrimination. When you look to see what it is, we as Rasta will say to all of these oppressors, be careful what you sow, because whatever you sow today, you are going to reap it tomorrow. It is going to come back to you, and it's going to bite you in your, what, and I won't even say, what that is, because you'll understand what I'm talking about. And to the sisters on this panel, as an elder, please, I want you to do this through the sake of love. Invest in your girls' education. Invest in your girls, teach them about home economy, house management, teach them about economic stability, teach them about healthcare and wellness, and also get them involved into the sciences and in technology, because we women are the foundation of our society. We are the pillar that keep that pole up. And another thing, what I'd love our sister to do as Rasta is to support each Rasta sister. Get involved in organization and groups and find out when there's a sister that is in crisis. And let us be mentor to our young Rasta sisters that are coming into the faith. Sisters, I'm asking you kindly, invest in small business, become self-empowered, become business women. Sisters, please use your voice to support injustice and try to use your voice to help to eliminate all form of violence against women and children, because it is going on right now. And another thing that I'm asking us kindly to do, remember our elders. You can look around in your house, your mother, your auntie, your in-laws, or somebody that need help. Try and reach out to them, especially in this time, with COVID virus. I just came with a sister yesterday. Her name is Sister Nani. She's from the Montego Bay Benevolent Society, where some of these brothers had been killed because they were Rasta when Buster Man to kill off all of the Rasta man them in Montego Bay. And most of those brothers were killed. So they have some kind of funding now for those people that are still alive, to give them some kind of support. And right now there's a home here in Montego Bay that they've just opened up to help take care of those elders. I just came back here in Jamaica and I don't know very much, but I know that I will have to be involved because there's a lot of elders here in Jamaica that needs care and elsewhere, not just here, but also elsewhere. You know, I find out just about a couple of days ago how many women, which is over 22 countries, that are female and they're world leaders. And currently there are women that are in power. And I say to us women, we deserve fundamental human rights, a sustainable development goal, which I highlight to pretty much honor each other, to be responsible and respectable, to treat each other with respect and honor like you also would want to be treated. And I thank you. But before I close, I want to remember Marcus Garvey today because he has played also a very important part in my life. And today I say, Ashe, Ashe. Marcus says, I will come and bring with me countless millions of Black slaves who have died in America and in the West Indies, and the millions of Africa to aid you in the fight for liberty. We are still fighting for liberty, justice, and human rights, sister. So we need to stay together as a chain link, especially our Rasta sister. You know, we need each other. They were goddess before they were God. And I just want to jump on one thing with Sister Queen, my Queen sister, and I'm going to say this, Queen sister. Catherine Howell, was born in Pinnacle. I'm the youngest daughter of Dr. Howell. Some of them, I've heard them say I'm not his daughter, but if they should cut off my father's face and put his face, which my mother is always reminding me who I look like, they will realize, you know, and my father was never the kind of man that you can fool because he had mysterious powers. He had mystical powers. So you couldn't go out there for breed for my father and come give him a jacket because people up there were so afraid of him that they feel like even if he touches them, they would die. But to cut a long story short, sister, polygamy has been around for a very long time. And I've been to Africa, I've been married to an African. And even though you know, we did not practice this, but this is something that has been, we're just not going to get rid of it. And when you look around and see who is it that is practicing polygamy, it's most of the times are men who are in a financial position to take care of more than one family. You know, I see my dad really was a man I would consider he had many wives because he tells me he paid dowry for 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever, how many of us. And he had many children, lots of us. But one good thing is that we grew up on a estate. We grew up in a village where my father had a place and we all assembled there. So we all know each other. We all know each other's mother. And my father was the kind of man that was very kind. One day I looked at him and I says, Daddy, why did you have so many kids? And he says, Catherine, when you treat a woman with love and respect and make her feel that she is needed, not only imagine when you give her money, she never wants to leave you. So I said to him, why do you stay around? He said, sometimes I have to run away from these women because, you know, I need to be alone by myself. But if you're going to have more than one wife's brother out there, know that you got to be financially stable. And I close with that. Peace and blessings to each and every one of us. And may Jah Rastafari continue to bless us and our family. Be safe. Give thanks.
Yeah, give thanks, Sister Kathy. As we are winding down, coming to the close of this webinar, we would like to thank all the presenters, all the empresses of Rastafari, and all the ones who took time out to be a part of this very important discussion. We have started the dialogue, we have started the dialogue. So now we will have to continue the dialogue so we can come to a clear path leading into the 21st century. Mama Desta, could you chime in here? Is Mama D still on the line?
Blessed, I don't think Mama D is still on.
Could I have a short word, please?
Yes, Brother Frankai.
Rastafari, I pray him. All hail to His Imperial Majesty and Empress Menen Asfa. All hail too to the African Rastafari faculty, or the new faculty of interpretation, or as we sometimes say, the new faculty of understanding. Let me just say that we've been looking at the whole question of man-woman relationships, even in Rastafari, in the physical sense. I give thanks to the sister who implied and brought us up to date on the spiritual aspects of such. I wouldn't want to say much on that, except to say the spiritual aspects of man and woman relationships is identified in some other cultures, in the yoga culture, for example, which is extremely akin to the Nyabingi, as our Imperial Majesty has always pointed out, the similarity between these ancient cultures and earthbound cultures, where we say yin and yang, the coming together and the joining of male and female cosmics, which rule the iration, as illustrated by that 1930 historic joining and coronation of His Imperial Majesty and Her Royal Highness Empress Aspa. Saying that to say that in every being, be they male or female, be they man or woman, there are these two aspects of the cosmic, male and female, the right and left sides of the brain, and that females then must acknowledge, respect, and join her male cosmic in herself, as much as the man too must also join that female aspect within him. So, High Priest, when we say of that female intuition, it is because over time males have been brought out of the understanding of the intuition that exists within them too. So they have to depend on that female companion to bring out such. As we mentioned too about the drums, and Sister Ifea, your father, the ancient elder now with our ancestors, Bingi Irie, was one who at all times that I have met him and been in congregations with him, he has always had his drum ready to bring peace and settlement and to bring up that rising of the irates, which the drum so adequately performs. Let me say too that when we're saying drums and we're looking at them as an amorphous entity, but in the Nyabingi cosmic, there are three types of drums, as we know, and these relate to the three aspects of life: physical, spiritual, and mental. And I don't look at spirituality just as something in itself out there. The yoga man says that we have to look at it as a whole cosmic of life, incorporating these three different aspects. And there's nothing to say that any one is higher than the other, but the true spirituality comes when we have a perfect unity, a perfect union, a perfect joining then of all the three aspects. The flower is on the tree, which has its roots also, but there's nothing to say that the flower is more important than the tree that bears it. They're all involved into one cosmic. And just to put that there as a means then of us looking to find the whole true spirituality of the tradition on which we are, namely Rastafari. And may we have the strength from our ancients and from such reasonings to enable us to continue in the strong building of his kingman on earth as it is in Mount Zion. Give thanks to the empresses who have brought great spiritual strength to I in this reasoning here today. May it long continue. Omani Ablahu, Rastafari forever.
Give thanks, Brother Frankai. Give thanks for that sound. You know, as the elder guiding I and I with his wise mind, you know, I would like to end on the note of the drum. You see, when the kete, the funde, and the bass lines up in synchronicity, it increases our vibration and lifts our energy to its optimum. That restores and refreshes our spirit. It realigns us and connects us with our spirituality, which now opens up a world of knowledge that exists within I and I. See, that I and I can bring out such, which addresses the fact that, you know, one of the sisters spoke on, I and I don't need to look outside of ourselves for the solution. It is among I and I. Whether it is economics or social, political, whatever development we seek, whatever answers we seek, we need to look within to the Almighty and to one another for such solutions and such answers. And with that, you know, I will say I give thanks to all who participated. It was wonderful. Information was great. The next webinar will be on the 4th of April. We will send out flyers and information as it gets closer to that time, as we seat the panelists and continue this dialogue, the new Rastafari, the African Rastafari new faculty of overstanding. Okay, as we continue in our introspection and our going forward, developing our principles that will guide us into the 21st century. Mama Ifya? Not hearing you. Are you muted, Mama? Check if you're muted.
Okay, yes.
Yes,
Yes, I was saying that I've been drawn to this speech here on page 11 of the selected speeches of His Imperial Majesty, and really I've been creating a balance within my personal self, especially going through these challenges that I and I in our relationship have been going through. And I just wanted to just draw it to I and I attention, and when I and I go into I and I's personal space and when I and I reconnect, and I can reflect on it.
Go ahead, Mama. Go ahead.
Yes, I. It's in higher education, public health graduation in Gondar. When we lay the foundation for the progress and development of the country, the fact that we granted the Constitution was in order to strengthen unity so that our country will be built around the idea of one emperor and one government in which everyone will be conscious of his and her duty based upon the principle of one for all and all for one. I remember Bingi Irie ever emphasizing that to I, like he said, love you one to another, for he that loveth is of Jah. Jah is love and Jah know the love of Jah. So those are some of the principles that have enabled me to keep the embodiment of the principle of I Divine Majesty, and also the elements that governs the power of the drums, the Nyabingi drums, devices.
Great, my sister. That's a beautiful note for I and I to conclude on, you know, giving I and I something to reflect on, you know, and we need to revive the groundation aspect of I and I liberty. We need to get those drums back into our lives on a regular, steady basis. We can't be social distance. We might be physically distant, but we must be socially connected as a people. See, so I man give thanks, you know, and look forward to, you know, working with ones, continuing this dialogue, and coming up with the solutions to our problems as a family, collectively. Rastafari.
The last year, this time.
May the divine energy of our mother and father, Emperor Haile Selassie I and Empress Menen, guide I and I throughout all I and I endeavors, and guide I and I through all I and I hurdles to a greater time, to a better space. Rastafari live and reigns.
All
Continually.
hail, Majesty
Hello.
I. All hail,
Selassie.
and Igbo. Igbo man, Rastafari. All hail.
Selassie.
Rastafari.
Yeah, Rastafari.
Mane Ablau.
Selassie, Rastafari.
Jabulani, my brethren, looking fresh and young and beautiful, man. Lovely. Lovely, my brother. Give thanks to the I.
Give thanks. Blessed love. Rastafari.
Blessed I am. Everyone needs to support the other webinars because they are discussing the same situations that we have discussed. And we need to further the conversation and widen it as far as possible among the family. So support all the other webinars as they come up. Give thanks. Again, this is Women's Month, so we salute the empresses of Rastafari and the empresses of the Pan-African movement that have paved the way, for I and I to be where we're at in this 21st century. Jah lives and reigns. I continue.